What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the start of the week, gang. Monday show to get things rolling here. Got a good group already coming together in chat. Want to congratulate Clintwood right out of the gate. Clintwood83, our pal, and looks like he came in fifth out of in the $25 skipper contest. Took fifth, turned $25 into $400 on Friday. Little hand-built lineup, nice. We also had Lone Wolf took down a few $100 and sent a little tweet about it over the weekends. Thanks to him and congratulations. He popped a third out of 411 entries in a contest and took down $400 himself. So, not bad work by both of you guys out there. And congratulations to anybody else who might have won something and hasn't mentioned it just yet. Welcome to the show. Hopefully everybody's weeks are off to a good start. Nice sunny day here in Jersey. It's hot. It's gross, but it's nice and sunny. It's not like pouring rain and stormy like it's been the last couple of days. Cujo's here, Trey's here, Andy Melman, Travis Wyndham. 8 games here. Pink hand wave back to you, buddy. It's a good weekend. It's profitable both days, I want to say. Had a good one rolling last night. Came up near, I think it was like 198, 199 FanDuel points in the end, but winners ended up pushing up to like 260 on the FanDuel slate. So just some cashers. But we had some good stuff. I think we were on point through most of the weekend, and we've got an interesting slate to talk about today. So I think we can dive right into it. It's there's some good pitching options on the board, and then there's kind of a broad range of like meh kind of options. You know, I think Glasnow obviously pretty good, but bad matchup. Same for Aaron Nola on the other side of that game. Logan Webb against the Nationals hasn't had his best season in terms of DFS upside and strikeouts, but is a very high-end pitcher most of the time. Very good at limiting runs. Interesting spot there. He's very cheap on DraftKings. I expect that makes him popular. Zach Gallen against the low strikeout, pretty good. Guardians is a little bit challenging. And then we get to, I do like Hunter Brown, but he's facing the Rangers. Not the best spot, not the worst spot. JP Sears is not at all trustworthy, but he's very cheap against the terrible White Sox. We'll go through this in a little bit more detail, but I just wanted to highlight, like, outside of these 4 guys at the top, there's a lot of question marks down through here, and then there's a lot of just, like, you really probably don't want to use these pitchers through some of these guys, too. Got a couple regular targets, like Patrick Corbin, drawing one of the higher totals against on the board as we jump over to the Vegas board. That one's right here. You can see the Giants, one of the 2 teams over 5 runs. Giants and the Royals in 2 kind of obvious spots. Giants facing Corbin. Royals facing James Paxton. Couple of gettable lefties. Couple guys we've been targeting pretty frequently. Top of the board, though, Diamondbacks against the Guardians, a 4.42 implied total for Arizona. 4.17 on the other side for Cleveland. We've got Logan Allen on the hill for Arizona going up against Zach Gallen. Again, I do think Zach Gallen's a talented pitcher. It's just I typically don't love targeting that Guardians lineup with pitching. So not the best spot, not the worst spot. We'll consider it. Logan Allen has had a up and down kind of a season. It's been mostly down last 3 starts in a row, and he hasn't pitched since July 6th and made 3 short starts going into that one. So we'll see what kind of upside we can even get out of him. But not a great spot. Diamondbacks pretty good against lefties. Reds against the Marlins. Roderick Munoz, not drawing a great projection. I did notice that he's been higher projected elsewhere. I'll take a look. I'll see if there's anything that needs to be done. I don't really see it here. The Reds are high strikeout in some configurations of their lineup, but others not as much. It's Pitcher Park in Miami, but a 4.59 implied total against coming down on the red side. I'm much more inclined to consider their bats. Munoz is just cheap, but he's one of the bottom pitchers on that board that we're going to look back at in a second. 3.99 implied total on the Marlins side. They're just bad. They're not drawing any upside, but Nick Martinez is probably only going to go 3 or 4 innings against, and then they'll hand off to the bullpen. This is really not a great spot to draw pitching from. The Giants, as discussed, love targeting Patrick Corbin. It's been a habit and a profitable one over the last 3-4 seasons at this point. You just target Patrick Corbin with bats. They'll be popular. A lot of right-handed bats on that in that lineup with power. Lefty like Conforto might go a little bit under-owned against Patrick Corbin than what he should actually draw. So there's some interesting spots. We'll talk it through. On the other side, Logan Webb, typically not a pitcher I like to stack against. The Guardians are okay. They've got some intriguing enough bats and intriguing enough talent on the right day. But targeting Logan Webb, his heavy ground ball rate, even if he's not getting the high-end strikeout numbers this year, it's just not the best spot. 4.0 total on the nose for Washington. Astros at the Rangers, 2 mid-4 totals on that one. It's Andrew Heaney. It's Hunter Brown. I do think, again, Hunter Brown pretty good and has had a shaky one last time out, but had been on a long stretch of very good outings. So I like his upside, but it's another spot where I don't really love targeting the Rangers. They've underperformed largely on the season. There's a lot of talent in that lineup. They've got Josh Young back in the lineup now. So not a comfy spot for Hunter Brown, but I think he's going to definitely be a strong piece of the slate. And then Andrew Heaney is another pitcher that I think we could probably consider some bats against, particularly good bats like the Astros. Sometimes you end up with those, it's not those anymore. It's because Kyle Tucker's got the worst shin injury in history. But Jordan Alvarez sometimes gets a little bit undervalued against a lefty. Not sure if that's going to be the case. We can maybe check his ownership when we get there. But it is a pitcher that I do like targeting. But as we all know, on the right day, Heaney can also be good. Even up total, 8.5 runs on the board overall, 4.27 on the Astros side, 4.32 on the Rangers side. Twins and the Cubs. This is an interesting one. The Cubs are going to be a little bit deceptive looking on the board because they're drawing monster home run numbers against David Festa, and there's really nothing I can do about it. Festa's given up a home run in each of his 4 outings, including 3 home runs and a start back on July 3rd. It's just 1 home run in each of the other outings, but there's significant enough upside for the Cubs to hit a home run, maybe 2 home runs. Their quality as a stack comes and goes, and you can see they're just at a 3.92 implied total. Festa, actually a pretty decent young pitcher, has just run into some bumps in terms of the home run downside. He's got good strikeout stuff. Cubs are very vulnerable to strikeouts to right-handed pitchers, so I actually like the Festa spot. And I'm concerned about how just, again, the Cubs with all the home run upside that they're showing on the power index. If you look at the power index, they're double digits in both categories at the top of the board. I do believe that they'll hit at least 1 home run against Festa. I don't know that they do a lot more damage than that, given where that total is. I don't think they're not playable either, though. I don't know how popular they're going to be because I do think Festa will get a little bit of traction, and that's not a great total. There are a lot of good bats in that lineup. There are a lot of bats with power upside, obviously, and there are a lot of guys who are good at getting on base. So it's a situation maybe they can find better than that Vegas total. Questionable spot. On the mound for the Cubbies, it's Kyle Hendricks, who is completely targetable with Twins bats. A 4.17 implied total for Minnesota honestly feels a little bit low. I like the Twins in that spot today. I think I like, just considering if I could get to some differentiated version of Nationals and Royals, I would love to do that. But there's spots like the Red Sox, even the Athletics are in consideration. There's a lot of different spots to go to with just healthier totals. But if that Twins team goes under-owned for that low total, Hendricks is not a threatening pitcher. That's a spot that's going to have a lot of contact for a team that can find a lot of premium contact against a soft tosser like Hendo. So I kind of like the Twin spot. 10-run total, top of the board between the Red Sox and the Royals. The Red Sox just continue to be involved in highly totaled games. It's James Paxton on the mound for the Sox, pushing a 5.32 implied total toward the Royals. But not to be outdone, Brady Singer on the mound against for the Royals against the Sox, 4.78 implied total. That could easily creep above or toward 5 with another little bit of weight on that game as we get toward lock. Singer has been pretty decent this year. He's an up and down kind of a pitcher. He hasn't been great for strikeout stuff, but he's been good for depth when he's going right. Out of his last 7 starts, he's gone at least 7 innings in 5 of them, 7 1/3, and one of them exactly 7 innings in the other 4. So he's got ability. That's a healthy total for the Red Sox. They've got all those really high-quality lefty bats to throw at Singer. I like the Red Sox there, and it's another spot where it's basically going to be which of the good-looking premium spots goes under-owned that I compare with the Giants is kind of how my slate's going to go for a single lineup. But I think there's a nice just opportunity to spread shares if you're building out 150 or 20 or whatever. Red Sox, Royals, you can throw some A's in there. The Giants are obvious. I think the Reds are in play despite the ballpark. Maybe Diamondbacks and Guardians sprinkle in there. Astros and Rangers, obviously, same thing. You could sprinkle those teams in. So I just named most of the teams on the board, I realize. But that's in, obviously, descending order of priority. I'm saying there's a healthy mix for offense today. Where'd we leave off? David Festa, Brady Singer, James Paxton, White Sox and the A's. So JP Sears, don't really trust him at all. We've talked about him a number of different times because he can occasionally break off a high-end start. He did that in his last game when we talked about him to potentially be in that spot. 7 innings, 9 strikeouts, 3-hitter, no runs against the Giants at San Francisco. Very solid pitchers parked there. Good environment for him to succeed. In the game before that, he went 6 innings against Houston. He gave up 7 earned runs on 9 hits, struck out just 3. Struck out just 4, gave up 2 earned runs in 5 2/3 against LA the start before that. Managed 8 strikeouts against the Red Sox. So you can find good spots with him. And obviously the White Sox are incredibly vulnerable. $4,000 on DraftKings for Kai Busch. I don't love the option. He doesn't project out even into the double digits, but he is on the board and he's facing a gettable enough Oakland team. We'll give it a look. Not the best numbers through the minor leagues, though. Not a ton of compelling reason to really think that he's going to succeed. And the A's are drawing a 4.95 implied total. That is the 3rd highest on the entire slate. Phillies and the Dodgers to round things out. The best pitching matchup of the night. It's Tyler Glasnow and Aaron Nola. Both teams drawing a sub-4 implied total. 3.61 for the Philly side of things. 3.98 for the Dodgers. To some degree, there are some, hitters that can't really be suppressed for their DFS projection for their upside, but this is definitely a weaker day for both of those teams if you're looking for bats from them. You can maybe extract some one-offs of a high quality. You can shop around like that, but neither of those pitchers is overly targetable for offensive upside. I definitely think you can play either one of them. I kind of prefer Nola with just the diminished version of the Dodgers lineup. But obviously the Phillies are drawing the implied total, and Glasnow between the two is the higher-end pitcher. I just think there's a little bit more of a threat lineup-wise, opponent-wise, to Glasnow, despite what the slight disparity in run total might say. Getting back to that. What's going on, Dimitri? Anthony Taylor, what's up, buddy? Tall the Gods here. So, who was your favorite stack, GPP stack for DK? So, I mean, GPP, it's kind of difficult to just, drill in immediately and say, what I'm sure is going to be a chalky Giants team is my favorite stack because GPP implies that we're considering a lot of factors where, you can take them as the obvious chalk and, that is a very good-looking spot. But when you throw in the wrinkle of, what's a good, quote-unquote tournament stack today, it's going to require me to pull up some ownership, and I won't, as usual, give it away. But let me see what's actually drawing some popularity. Because as I was kind of rambling about there, breaking down that run board, I do think there's some really interesting spots for offense today. So just kind of comes down to which of those teams is going to be the lower owned. So let's start with where does KC come down? DraftKings. KC honestly looks fine. The Giants are going to be really popular. But as I was expecting, both Conforto and Yaz in the lefty-lefty are not really drawing any kind of ownership at all. So if you want to just call it the Giants as my favorite, and with the little asterisk on it, get different by playing one of those lefties, and it's probably Conforto. Let me check where they're at right now. Teams, 24, splits. We'll get into all this, but it's a good enough question. Giants. Yeah, Giants got a 119 WRC plus against lefties, and Patrick Corbin is on the bad side of there are lefties and lefties. Again, he is just one of our absolute favorite targets over a long stretch of time coming into today, including that last game where the Diamondbacks hung, 10 or 11 runs on him. So Yaz is slashing 240, 345, 340 against same-handed pitching this season over 58 plate appearances, a 103 WRC plus. And Conforto actually is quality against lefties, 294, 351, 529 with a 235 ISO, 4 of his home runs, and a 149 ISO. You telling me Michael Conforto can't succeed today against Patrick Corbin? Get Michael Conforto into your Giant stacks. You're making a difference already. And we'll get into more of that again in a minute. But that would be my just straightforward answer to which of those teams is my favorite. But continuing on with what I was starting there, the Royals are not as popular as I thought they would be for that matchup against Paxton. So I really like the looks of that spot now on DraftKings. The same thing for the Red Sox, who are drawing a high implied total on the other side. Outside of the 3 most obvious guys, they're 3 big lefties. Everybody else is in the single digits. So we'll look where he lands when we get to that game against Singer. But Willie Abreu, who we talk about all the time, is a very high-end lefty for them. Single-digit ownership. Connor Wong, who we like a lot, is a catcher play on DraftKings, single-digit ownership. So then Rafaela, Tyler O'Neill, single-digit ownership. There's absolutely no reason, if the top end of the Red Sox are going to be popular, that Tyler O'Neill, assuming that he's in the game, he was sick over the weekend, that he would go owned in the low single digits, or should go that low owned. So those are some pretty killer spots in the Red Sox lineup, and you get a very similar output on the in the projections for the Royals. They might have this a little bit low. Looking at some of these, I'd be surprised if Sal was owned in the single digits. He's in the higher single digits projection-wise. If you're looking for another value team, I think Oakland's really interesting. Nobody on their squad is owned even in the double digits in these RG ownership projections. And then I was saying the Twins. Actually, no, that's one of those guys is the pitcher. Yeah, wow. So most popular Twins bat is the leadoff hitter, which is fine. Willie Castro's a good player, but he's more of a correlated scoring option than Wallner with all his power, just into the double digits, and then everybody else is in the single digits. It seems easy to get to some of the good teams on DraftKings today. Where is all the hitting ownership? Is it just a big spread in their projections today? Giants. Oh, they've got the Diamondbacks pretty popular in that spot against Logan Allen. Interesting. That wasn't one I was really... It's fine. I mentioned it before, mid-fours total, and Allen's totally gettable. But I'm surprised they've got that higher owned than some of these meaty totals. Excuse me. So diving into the, so I didn't actually answer that fully, but any one of those teams honestly is really very easy to go to. Boy, I like the idea of targeting both Paxton and Corbin, to be honest. If I can get the Royals as low owned as they're projected and pair them with the Giants, and those teams fit together pretty well, because you're getting catcher, first base, shortstop, second base probably. Second base is up in the air. Third base up in the air. But you're not really overly conflicted. Definitely not that much at shortstop. What's the positional eligibility? I think that's an interesting combination. We'll think about it more when we actually get there. I need to actually pick up the pace and move through this board, but that'll be an interesting one to think through. Whichever one connects best with that Giant stack, if that's where you're going, but that is my actual top stack on the board. And then whichever one of those teams connects, it would be my next answer, considering how low Boston, Kansas City, and Minnesota are projected to be owned, or at least how easy it is to create a unique differentiated stack given how low owned some of the players in those lineups are. So whichever one fits the best with whatever your plan is, or like whatever pitchers you want to get to, would be the easy answer. Glasnow, believably the top of the board against Philadelphia. He's fantastic. Philly has some strikeouts in that lineup. You'll see that both Harper and Schwarber are above the magic number for home run upside against him, but Philly with that low total is not really that appealing as a stack, and I think he's completely playable from the top of the board. It's just you're not really getting much of a discount for facing Philly. Logan Webb, $10,000 on FanDuel, expensive. $8,400 on DraftKings, not expensive at all. That's a great price. You've also got Aaron Nola at just $88. You've got Zach Gallen against Cleveland for $86. So DraftKings did you a favor by putting all three of those guys at very reachable prices. I think it's probably worthwhile to consider pairing two of those guys together as like a mid kind of a combination where you're really getting true SP1s from each of those spots. No issues with it. Rough opponents. Even Washington is relatively low strikeout, as mediocre as they are overall. I think Logan Webb can succeed there, but not any one of those is as easy as, say, J.P. Sears' spot against the White Sox is. It's just, I think we can all agree, J.P. Sears not nearly the pitcher that any of those guys are. 86, you could probably do better on that price on FanDuel. They didn't give him that great a price. Like 80, even 80, like 4. 82. I want a couple $100 more separation between him and the Gallons and the Hunter Browns of the world. It's a little bit close. I really don't trust JP Sears that much, but I do think it's a playable spot and it's not a bad price. It probably works pretty well with a lot of combinations that we're going to talk about. 77 on DraftKings makes him very easy to reach. I think he's effective in that spot as an SP2. I also think he's going to be pretty popular in that spot as an SP2. I can verify that, actually, since I've still got the thing up here. Yeah, he's the most popular of the value guys. The top three pitchers are all the top three guys on the board, with Tyler Glasnow basically doubling these guys up. Oh, wait, actually, one of those three guys is not. Gallen's not drawing that much popularity, which I think makes sense, probably fair. But that might be a spot to consider if you're just looking at which of these guys. Say you're building like one lineup, and you're going to say, all right, I don't want to go Glasnow because he's going to be in like half of the field's lineups, so let me consider one of these guys as my SP1 as a tiebreak between those guys, considering that the matchups are not all that dissimilar, good as Cleveland is. Gallen, considering he's owned about half again as much as the other guys, might be an interesting consideration. Singer has the talent to get by Boston, but probably not the best spot at 91. 83 puts him more into the mix. Is just a lower end version of those guys in the 8s at the top. He's definitely not as good. It's probably a more difficult spot for him against Boston with all those lefties in that ballpark, but I think he's playable more so on DraftKings, a little bit playable on FanDuel, but not a great spot at 91. Festa's the tough one. I do think there's a lot of strikeout upside against the Cubs. I do think he's good. There's underlying results to suggest that he is. He doesn't walk that many hitters. It's just been the home run issue so far in his limited outings. So at 67, 61, I'm probably going to have some Festa in my FanDuel lineup at that price. I'm going to hope for the 6th inning and quality start. 6,100, I just think he's a very, very playable value dart. We just got to duck and dodge around the monster home run numbers that the Cubs are putting up. Nick Martinez, it's a pretty low projection, and it honestly might be a little high considering we're getting like 3, maybe 4 innings out of him. But it is a pitcher-oriented park. The Marlins are diminished and just terrible. They were already terrible, and they got worse at the trade deadline. So maybe he gives you around that median. I just don't think there's much ceiling here. I think that's the challenging spot. Andrew Heaney against the Astros, not a pitcher I trust really. On DraftKings, easily in the value bin, though, at 6,400. You can definitely play that as an SP2. He's got enough strikeout upside to find a few bonus Ks against the Astros. It's not a good strikeout spot. and he needs to avoid his obvious and usual hiccups. 84 on FanDuel. If you're shopping around and you're sick of rostering JP Sears at 86, that's a reasonably comparable part for 200 less. It's a big projection gap, but the ceiling gap is probably not big at all, or it might even favor Heaney. Probably not. That's a bit of a stretch. JP Sears has enough strikeout upside that the ceiling doesn't favor Heaney, but it's a lot closer than that projection looks like it would be. Corbin's just a target for bats for me, but you can have him if you want him for cheap. Logan Allen at 79.84. He hasn't really earned all that much faith. That DraftKings price is also oddly high. Paxton against KC, I think we're just targeting with bats if we can afford them, and they seem to be low-owned enough. Kyle Hendricks is a target for Twins bats. Kai Busch is going to be an interesting one to talk about. He's only available on DraftKings at 4,000, not on the FanDuel slate, near as I could tell. And Roderi Munoz has had a couple little flashes. He's very cheap. Maybe you could target some of the strikeouts just as a value bin dart, more so on DraftKings, but he is very cheap on FanDuel as well. Obviously doesn't project out very well at all. No problem. It's all. That's it's a relevant question, and it's not something that I like zero in on at the top of the show to just like set the table for people. Often we usually do like, here's the runs and I'll talk about it kind of a little bit. And then, here's the pitching board. But I do think it's important to identify like, what are the highest owned stacks among the very good stacks, and then which of the lower owned ones, or if they are low owned enough, how do they all fit together? And as usual, I really do think that it's much more about those combinations, and that's really what the Sims are driving at, is finding those unique combinations in and amongst the quality lineups, and then the quality lower owned bargain bin type plays, and just getting to a proper distribution of that. So the first game up is that under-owned or potentially under-owned Zach Gallen spot. 8,600 is a very fair price on DraftKings. The Guardians, again, super low strikeouts. Stephen Kwan at the top, 8.5% strikeouts against an 8% walk rate. He's just constantly putting the ball in play, and he's really, really good at finding base hits. 333 average, 392 on base this year. His creator runs 51% better than average. Seem to be moving furniture in the apartment above me. So Quan is terrific, and he's a really frustrating first hitter to have to face. And then you get Lane Thomas, who's just an average for strikeouts, but he's a decent power bat. He's got 28 stolen bases on the year, a 104 WRC plus. Hasn't hit as many home runs in his 364 chances this year. He's just got 8 and a 150 ISO, but a 42% hard hit rate, 7% barrels. He's a tough enough bat, but there are maybe an opportunity to strike him out. But then you run headlong into Jose Ramirez and his 12.6%. Josh Naylor, who's a tremendous power bat of his own, 17%. Further down the lineup, Andres Jimenez and Tyler Freeman are both believably low strikeout for all their flaws. Otherwise, they don't strike out a lot. So it does start to chew into Gallen's downside, or it's chew into his upside and create a little bit of downside. 3.56 ERA for Gallen, a 3.61 xFIP. He is basically exactly what he looks like on the surface. 10.7% swinging strike rate, 27.4% CSW. He's a little bit above average. I think it's fair. Put him in like Jose Barrios territory. I don't think that's an unfair comparison. Probably he's given us a little bit more quality. But overall, they kind of land similarly. Gallen's also got a 6.8% barrel rate allowed on the season over his 93 and 2/3, 18 starts, 44% hard hits, 90 plus miles an hour of exit velo. So the barrels aren't bad. The launch angle's also okay. That's a manageable launch. This is really high. Remember, we look for like 40 here and we look for 90 here to start talking about a premium contact problem. He's done enough keeping the ball down, just enough between these, that it's been all right, but mistakes are going to tend to travel, and he's probably getting a little bit lucky at that 2.05% home run rate. You can see Stuff Plus thinks he's slightly below average. So again, I think we're dealing with basically a league average-ish pitcher. On FanDuel, he's priced more toward the ace upside, and against the Guardians, I don't know that he's necessarily got $9,400 worth of ace upside. I think he's playable, but I do think it warrants getting him at the lower end of those top overall pitchers. On DraftKings at 86, he's much, much more playable, and if he's going to be owned in the teens and everybody else is going to be elsewhere, higher up, then I do think that's a worthwhile consideration. You just got to hope he finds a few additional Ks. On the other side, Logan Allen, low projection. I think he's just at the 4.5 default innings. Going back to the top of the game logs here. So he hasn't pitched since July 6th in the show. He went 4 1/3 in that one, 4 1/3 in the start immediately before that, and 3 innings in the outing before that one. He was pitching. Was he pitching in the minors? Yeah, he was pitching in. Turn of the rotation. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, so he had 3 good starts in AAA. Maybe I could push him to 5 innings, but I don't think we're getting much more than that. He went 6 innings in 2 of the 3 starts in early mid-June. 5 in one in another one. He did go 6 a couple of times this year. He's also a pitcher who's just got a 5.67 ERA, a 4.61 xFIP, just a 19.7% strikeout rate, a 9.1% walk rate, and a pretty significant home run problem, despite being similar to and actually better than Zach Gallen's been in terms of limiting barrels on the season. 12.9 degree average launch angle on the season is manageable. 40% hard hits, 89.3 miles an hour of exit velo. He's arguably gotten unlucky on a couple of those home runs, but that's more like mediocre pitcher making a mistake kind of unlucky. So it's not really unlucky so much as a mix of happenstance between him throwing a bad pitch to a good hitter. But 4.66 is kind of high, but you can see 84.27 by Stuff Plus. No darling of the models here. I don't think at 84.79, again, that's just an oddly high price there, and this is not overly appealing on the DraftKings on the FanDuel slate. I just don't think we need to go there. And I do think you can draw shares of the Diamondbacks bats. Again, they're going to be apparently pretty popular per RG's ownership projections. I was a little surprised by that, but it does make sense. Allen's targetable enough, and they are a team that is good against lefties. It's just they're drawing a mid-4s total. There are definitely more appealing totals on the Vegas board. They're also without Christian Walker, one of their better hitters, but they've got Josh Bell in that cleanup spot now. Not the same bat, but a guy who maybe finds some quality. Ketel Marte, an 11.61 in the home run model at the top of the board. Dynamite second baseman if you can afford him. 58.39, appropriately priced. He's slashing 300, 366, 553. He's got a 252 ISO this season with 27 home runs. Monster season from Marte. He doesn't strike out all that much at all. That's another thing about this Diamondbacks lineup and the matchup in general. They're also very low strikeout, 18% strikeout rate for this confirmed Diamondbacks lineup. So not a great spot even if you were a Logan Allen fan. Gabriel Moreno continues to be an interesting catcher anytime he's hitting second for the 3,500, 2,800 across sites. Considering that it's Josh Bell at first base now, I do think you could have some shares of lineups where you just use Moreno and you don't occupy both catcher and util on FanDuel in those lineup constructions. You can definitely pair them together in some of your Diamondbacks lineups, but they're probably worth separating in a number, and you just consider them both first baseman kind of plays. 256, 340, 370 out of Gabriel Moreno this season. Josh Bell, a worse hitter, but he does have 16 home runs now, a 166 ISO, hitting the ball a little bit harder of late, low strikeout at 19.8%. Hitting in the cleanup spot. And then between those two, Lourdes Gurriel for 43.29. The Diamondbacks are super affordable, which is also probably what's driving their popularity up now that I think about it. Compared to the Red Sox, the Royals, the Twins, it's a lot easier to reach combinations with Diamondbacks bats. So it might be a situation where it's a lot of them paired with a lot of those teams and then paired with the Giants, obviously. But that's probably Diamondbacks Giants is probably a path towards some pretty cheap pitching. Diamondbacks A's, probably same thing, or some pretty expensive pitching rather. Gurriel's a good hitter. 267, 299, 416. The slash line needs some work. The average is fine, but he doesn't get on base enough this season. That's what's killing his WRC plus at just 98, but he's hit 14 home runs, stolen 6 bases, has been a better bat than this over time, just 19.7% strikeouts against 3.9% walks. So it's a lot of pretty well struck balls in play. He's a little bit diminished from his past quality in a lot of ways, but he's very cheap at 43.29, so that's easy to reach. Grichuk at 34.24, always deployable, especially against a weak lefty. 3 home runs, a 152 ISO, a 111 WRC plus. Definitely a playable right-handed bat. Jake McCarthy, mix and match option, 4,027. He gets on base at a great 367 clip. He's a good correlated scoring option with a little bit of speed. 16 stolen bases on the year, a 121 WRC plus. Another pretty low strikeout option, 17% this year, 19.9% last year. He just doesn't really hit the ball hard. More a table setter, get to first base, steal second, try and score a run when Eugenio Suarez, let's say, hits another home run. He's been one of the top players in baseball in terms of at least fantasy stuff. What we care about, DFS upside, over the last 30-plus days at this point. 9.9% barrels, 38.9% hard hits on the season, up to a 183 ISO. That's still not previous quality, but if you remember where Eugenio Suarez was at 6 weeks ago, the numbers have really come around in terms of the power. 16 home runs now, 183 ISO, up to a 101 WRC plus. He's still a flawed bat, slashing just 228, 307, 411, striking out 28.4% of the time. But at least he's back to creating big scoring events, which is really all we want him for. And for 3,900, 3,100 to roster that bat against a weak lefty, third base, that's really appealing. I'm sure he's going to be popular, but would not want to skip him in Diamondback stacks. Eugenio Suarez, one of the top priority. It's probably Marte then Suarez, and then you just fill in with whichever guys you want positionally and price-wise between those two. But I would say those are your top 2 priority Diamondbacks bats. And then Kevin Newman and Geraldo Perdomo are not priorities at all. They're just mix and match guys from the bottom. You could do worse among the mix and match guys available at the bottom of lineups on this slate than either of those guys, though. Newman, not a gigantic contributor, 92 WRC plus, slashing 279, 308, 386, 2 homers, 5 steals. Geraldo Perdomo, 282, 339, 368, right at league average creating runs. Both of those guys do have decent ability to put the ball in play, hit for average, get on base, and create a scoring event of some kind. But it's very just cheap correlated scoring to wrap around to the top of the lineup kind of options. I think you can draw some Guardians against Zach Gallen here, but they're at a 4.17 implied total, not their best. They're not showing a ton of power against, but you do have 2 just a little bit under the magic number types. And then you've got these great table setters like Stephen Kwan at the top of the lineup. Lane Thomas himself in the 2 spot. A 327 on base is not bad if you're just looking for him to provide correlated scoring. Both of those guys can steal bases, 9 on the season for Kwan. He could honestly run a little bit more given his absurd on-base percentage. It's not like it's hampering his run creation, though, at 151 WRC plus. And stolen bases are really mostly only good for fantasy scoring. So I get why he's not. 28 steals out of Lane Thomas. Again, only 8 home runs this year. Last year he hit 28 in 682 chances. We're probably not getting 20 in the next couple hundred plate appearances. He missed a little bit of time this year. But you can see the premium contact, the hard hits are actually up a little bit. The barrels are down a little bit, but that could catch up pretty quickly. Strikeouts are actually managed a little bit better, and he's drawing more walks this year. So in some ways, he's become a better hitter at the plate. And just I'll reiterate something I've said a few times. This is the ideal team for him to land on, and he is like made in a lab for what he does well for what this team wants. So perfect acquisition by them. Love him in the 2 spot. Love him hitting between Kwan, Ramirez, and Naylor going down the lineup. The 2 power bats are killers. 6,000, 4,300 for Jose Ramirez. Totally worth paying for. 29 homers, 22 steals, 263 ISO, and a 139 WRC plus. Again, all of that against 12% strikeouts, 7.3% walks. He's just absolutely dynamite at third base. And then you get Naylor for pretty cheap, 4,800. That averages them down to 5,400 apiece. And Naylor's been 5,400 in spots this season, and we've gladly paid it. I have nothing against the season that Naylor's having. I think they just made him a little bit too cheap, honestly. 9.6% barrels, 44.1% hard hits, striking out just 17% of the time, getting on base at a 329 clip. He's got 24 home runs, a 237 ISO. He's created runs 27% better than average on the season. That's a really strong season overall out of Josh Naylor. 3,400 on FanDuel is more correct, but also you could have made him plausibly 36, 37. David Fry at catcher for 42 is also pretty cheap. He's slashing 279, 382, 445. Very solid correlated scoring option with a little bit of power upside despite limited-ish premium contact. 39% hard hits. He's more of a hard hits kind of an option so far this year. Last year he did have more barrels. But when he's found barrels this season, he's found home runs for him. He's got 9 on the year and 294 chances. Very cheap option at the catcher spot in the middle of a good lineup. It's just Gallen, again, a talented pitcher, not the best overall stacking spot. Down their lineup, Andres Jimenez, Tyler Freeman, again, are both very low strikeout, put the ball in play types. Mixed success, 82 WRC plus for Jimenez, 93 for Freeman. They've got 16 and 10 stolen bases apiece and mediocre slash lines, but they are cheap and they do put the ball in play, more so than Bo Naylor, who's only hit 8 home runs and not done much else this season, 73 WRC plus, and then Brian Rocio, who's just here to play defense. Diamondbacks bats, Zach Gallen. Guardians bats. For me, no Logan Allen. He's just mispriced. And not that good in this spot. The dog's like dreaming and his feet are against the side of the under part of the desk. And I guess he's running. So his paws are like tapping on the side of the desk. That's what that noise is. I've also got like a big pet hair in my eye. The cat's new favorite spot in the world, or renewed favorite spot in the world, is like right here in front of me while I'm trying to do all my shit. And like he loves, if I send any weird messages in Discord over the next few days, it's just because the cat won't get off the damn keyboard when I'm not in the room. He's also knocked the microphone over. He's knocked the mouse over like 3 times. It's been a disaster. But I think that's whose fur is currently in my eye. Anyway, Nick Martinez. Despite the really good matchup here against the Marlins, who again are drawing just a 3.9, I call it a 4.0 implied total in their home park, which is a pitcher-friendly park. Martinez making his first actual start since May. He's been mostly pitching in bulk relief. Went 4 innings back on July 30th. Just 3 days ago, he threw an inning of just pure relief, faced 5 hitters, gave up an earned run on 2 hits, struck out 2. I can't imagine we're getting more than like 3 innings, maybe 4. And he's just not good enough to really warrant shares at 69-63 when we're getting that. In mostly relief work this year, again, 5 starts, but mostly relief work of the 2 to 4 innings form. A couple times earlier in the year, he went 4 1/3 in bulk relief, 4 2/3, 5 innings in bulk relief. He went 4 innings again, 2 outings ago. But before that one, it had been from May 26th to July 30th before he went 4 innings again. Mostly on the season, it's been an inning here, an inning there, an inning and 2/3, 2 innings. The numbers are okay overall. A 3.65 ERA, a 4.05 xFIP, very good walk rate at 3.1%, a pretty solid swinging strike rate, a pretty bad CSW, and limited, slightly below average strikeout rate at 19.4%. But he hasn't been bad at all in terms of the 4% barrel rate. Despite the hefty launch angle, he's managed to wrangle power very effectively. 28.8% hard hits, 85.9 miles an hour of exit velo. I'd say that's an ideal, just like long reliever. In a starting role where you're only getting a couple of innings, I do think that he could hit around those projections, but I don't think you're getting more than like 12, 13 points on DraftKings, 23, 24, or 25 points on FanDuel. That's it. So for your money, I really don't think that's worth it. On the Marlins side, 66 on DraftKings and 72 for Rodere Munoz here. He did strike out 7 Rays in his most recent outing. He gave up 2 earned runs on 4 hits over 5 innings. 2 starts back, he went 5 against the Mets, struck out 5 but walked 3, just 1 earned run on 3 hits. In between, he gave up 6 earned runs to the Orioles, but that could happen to anybody. 3 home runs in that game is not totally typical. Just 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. Had a 6 2/3 inning game against the Astros, but ended up giving up 4 earned runs, 6 runs total, 5 hits, 2 strikeouts, 2 walks. Overall, this is a pretty limited pitcher. A very bad 11.1% walk rate, just a 19.8% strikeout rate, 10.3% swinging, 25.4% CSW, a 5.45 ERA with a 5.17 xFIP, giving up a monster amount of premium contact, 13.8% barrels, 43.9% hard hits, 90.5 miles an hour of exit velo. If it wasn't for the ballpark being a little bit on his side, by the way, a 6.60% home run rate in a minute. So far, in a minute, we will look at, my brain skipped ahead with what I wanted to say. 6.60% home run rate so far. In a minute, we'll take a look at David Festa, who I believe is in the 7s for his home run rate. But I just think the ballpark is really helping out a little bit there with, like, why is Ellie against that kind of contact below a 10 in the home run model? He's only just below, and you get Spencer Steer, you get Tyler Stevenson, Jay McCondelladio just below. Any one of those guys could easily hit a home run in this park. It's just a little bit of ballpark helping Roderi Munoz look a little bit better in terms of the power against. But I think the Reds are supremely stackable here. They rank out as one of the better overall stacks. I didn't really include them in the mix as I was running that down. But again, that 4.59 implied total, that's another pretty healthy looking spot. And if people avoid it for better ballpark situations, let's see what their ownership looks like. Very playable. The most obvious guy is owned in the low 20s. Everybody else is easy to reach. So if you're stacking, totally fine to grab Ellie and everybody else. They'll just help shave down the overall ownership. Not a bad spot to consider. They're firmly in that mix of Red Sox, Royals, Twins, I'm going to say, and Reds are strong considerations. It's going to be a tough decision. It really is going to boil down to, like, what fits best with that Giant stack that I'm almost certainly going to play. And considering they don't have really an ultra premium shortstop on that Giants team that I need to worry about, the Reds fit that bill. Jonathan India from the top of their lineup. Let me see if we got the confirmed one, actually. Hit the like and the subscribe, by the way. I haven't harangued anybody for likes yet. We get a fair number of likes every time, but we could do a little bit better. Some of you guys hang out and manage to not hit it somehow from time to time, but that's okay. Everybody's welcome. I know sometimes it's effort. You don't want to reveal that you've been here. Not that it does. But who knows what YouTube and Google and everybody are tracking. Elon and the like. You don't want them to know you play DFS? I get it. But if you can, if you manage, if you don't care that much, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Also check out our pals over at acemind.io. Pretty great site for sims, for optimizers. We're going to be diving into it a lot more when we get back to football and basketball coming up, which is right around the damn corner at this point. So check them out, acemind.io. Promo code rotoscouts gets you 20% off your first month over there. They also have a 3-day free trial. MLB products, NFL, NBA, a lot of the smaller sports, and I say smaller, I mean, like, you know, I think PGA and NASCAR are probably up there at this point. MMA, I know they have. So a lot of good stuff, a lot of stuff you're looking for, and better pricing than basically anybody in the industry. Better pricing than anybody I've seen out there for a very strong tool. And follow at rotoscouts on Twitter and like and retweet those things when they pop up. Help these algos help people find us. So India is at the top of the lineup, a 365 on base out of him. It's another player could start running a little bit more, considering how frequently he gets on base. 9 home runs, 10 steals, creating runs 15% better than average. Once they moved him back up to that leadoff spot, it started to click more consistently for Mr. India, and he's been pretty good in that role. Ellie, superstar caliber player, 18 home runs, 57 stolen bases on the year, a 218 ISO. Guess we're probably not getting to 100 unless he really hustles a lot over these last 7-8 weeks. But we're going to get 75, 25, 75 kind of a season. It's probably pretty doable at this point. 12.2% barrels, 42.8% hard hits, going up against Roderick Munoz and all that premium contact that he's been allowing. Totally love the spot. Could see some stolen base upside out of Ellie. Tons of counting stat potential. Spencer Steer, 40.6% hard hits for just 4,900, 3,400 across sites. FanDuel, a little bit more correct for where Steer's at this season. 15 homers, 17 stolen bases, great for counting stats. Creating runs just 1% better than average because he's only slashing 231, 316, 417 overall, but a solid, not spectacular, but solid 186 WRC ISO, and plays 3 positions on the FanDuel slate. Just 2 on DraftKings. It's first base, outfield. I love the second base eligibility for him on FanDuel. Both him and Michael Busch. I believe Busch still has that second base eligibility on FanDuel. They've been carrying that for a while now, and I really like having that option where they don't have it comparatively on DK. 4,100, 2,800 for TJ Friedl, a guy who consistently puts the ball in play. He's fairly low strikeout, but does not hit the ball all that hard. Right now, over 140 plate appearances, we're at just 213, 314, 352. He's a significantly better hitter than that. He's got a little bit of power. He's hit 5 home runs in that sample, stolen 6 bases. So he's good for counting stats, good for DFS upside, a quality lefty bat in the cleanup spot today. Tyler Stevenson had a big day the other day on a day that I think was a game they were not on the slate. He's up to 13 home runs, a 197 ISO, 107 WRC plus. I think it was like a late afternoon game and we started in the evening or whatever, but I think did he hit 2 home runs or did you just have like a big day with a home run? Either way, he's a catcher bat we've been talking about throughout the season. 9.5% barrels, 45.3% hard hits this year. Both of those are up, but he's made pretty consistently good contact over the last 2 seasons. He still only costs $3,700 on the DraftKings slate, $3,000 on the FanDuel slate. He's hit 13 homers, 197 ISO. He's crushing the ball when he makes contact with it. Where you have to play catchers especially, that's a pretty killer option. And yet another team that has a very premium shortstop and catcher option to consider. So there's a lot to work with on today's slate in some key spots. Jeimer Candelario, second base eligible on the DraftKings slate, 4,100. So forget what I said about the Spencer Steer option, having Candelario at second base on DK for 4,100, just as good. First and third base on the FanDuel slate at 2,900, 18 home runs for him, 213 ISO. We're really just looking for home run upside out of Jeimer Candelario. Anything else we get is gravy. 8.75 sits second on the team in the home run model. Not a bad option at all, and I love that second base eligibility. Ty France, 28-24 is just cheap. He's having a really bumpy season, 218, 304, 340, and 89 WRC plus. Got himself DFA'd and traded out of Seattle. Jake Fraley, mix and match quality lefty, 278, 328, 383. Has 3 homers, 14 steals, but just a 96 WRC plus. And then Noelvi Marte, really disappointing season so far. After the suspension, 109 plate appearances, now just 168, 220, 267, and a 31 WRC plus. Pretty rough. For whatever innings that Nick Martinez is going to be in there, he's effective enough that doesn't really draw the eye toward the Marlins. They, again, are one of the teams that's under, and just a tick under, but under a 4-run implied total today. Xavier Edwards has been good at the top of their lineup, over 132 plate appearances so far. He does have a 458 on base, a 165 WRC plus. He's not a masher, but he's been good at getting the ball in play and reaching first base. 382, 458, 473 overall, 1 home run and 11 steals, but you can see the very limited premium contact. He's drawing a lot of walks. He's low strikeout, a lot of walks, and creates correlated scoring opportunities. It's just a matter of the guys behind him in the lineup managing to come through, which is where things start to fall apart. Jake Burger's hit 17 home runs. He's got a 98 WRC plus, 190 ISO. He's kind of pulled things together. He's up to 240, 287, 430. It's still like a better slash line overall, but the numbers are looking a little bit better now for Burger. That ISO's kind of creeping up. You can get over 200 in pretty short order. We're at 11.8% barrels and 46.1% hard hits. Still striking out and drawing a lot and not drawing many walks, but that's just who he is. So he's a limited hitter. He's not a 3 true outcomes type of a bat. but he can definitely find some home run upside. 6.33 in the model because Nick Martinez does not give up all that much premium contact or power. Jesus Sanchez for just 3,600, 2,900, 12 home runs on the season, just a 166 ISO, despite, again, just utterly elite premium contact. 12.2% barrels, 52.7% hard hits. Those numbers should be better. It's not Vinny Pasquantino because he strikes out like twice the rate as Vinny Pasquantino, but he hits the ball just as hard. So it is a player where I believe that this and this should be higher. Where like Vinny, I'm saying like all of it should be higher, and has obviously trended in that direction over the last few weeks. But Sanchez should be at least a better power bat than he is. I think you can, any given slate, pick off a lefty home run. If you're playing Marlins, these guys are your top three easily, and then it's probably Kyle Stowers after that with all his lefty pop. He's got 1 home run in 53 chances this year. He's made crazy contact so far this year. He made very good contact 2 years ago with limited output. But a lefty with believable potential to hit one out of the park. He's also very heavy strikeout, 41.5% in the limited sample this year, 36.4% in an also limited sample last year. That was extremely limited, but he's always been heavy strikeout. Emmanuel Rivera is just cheap in the infield, 217, 301, 278 with a 68 WRC plus. Otto Lopez has 3 homers and 10 steals, but a 57 WRC plus. Vidal Brujan slashing 222, 309, 323, and a 78 WRC plus with 1 homer and 4 steals. And then Nick Fortes in 226 chances has hit 2 home runs, has a .070 ISO and 45 WRC plus. So really, it is 1, 2, 3, 5. And then if you have to have somebody else, just pick whoever and go from there. But it's 1, 2, 3, 5, and that's about it in this Marlins lineup. I think I completely skipped over Jonah Bride just because he shouldn't be hitting cleanup, as discussed. 3 home runs and a 193 ISO on the season and 64 chances, but he's not a good bat. You can play him. You could just, if you wanted to go 1 through 5, that's probably your best bet. But that 5th man in is very challenging from the Marlins. Reds bats. Nothing else. It's probably Reds bats and then bumpy, ugly shares of Roderick Munoz. It's not a bad price, 66 on DraftKings to roll the SP2 dart a few times. And you're just hoping to find some strikeouts against that 23.3% rate, but he's just not good at it. Gives up a ton of power. I'd much rather have the Reds bats. Trey likes the top 5 and Fortes at 9. Edwards and Berger mainly, though. Yeah, I mean, I think that like is a very strong word. But if you, were somehow blackmailed into having to roster the Marlins today, then yeah, it would be the top 5. Fortes is really challenging. He doesn't strike out a lot. He doesn't walk, so there are a lot of balls in play, but he doesn't exactly hit the ball hard. 2 home runs, 216, 240, 286, 55% worse than average this year creating runs. Last year he hit for slightly more power and a little bit more the year before. But he's really not been good. If you got this version of him for one day, I guess it's playable. 9 home runs and 240 chances, a 161 ISO is okay. Was dead at league average that year creating runs. But in his biggest chance, he didn't really do well last year and has not done well at all this year. It's just a matter of if he's your 5th man in, a $2,300 catcher from the 9 spot, sure, but really, really, it's 1, 2, 3, 5, and then probably 4 is your next man in. All right, we've talked about this obliquely a few times, but let's dig in on the Giants. So I mentioned combining them with teams with premier shortstops, and that's doing Tyler Fitzgerald and his great numbers so far kind of a disservice. What my point there is as good as Tyler Fitzgerald is or has been, I don't know in full that he is, say, Bobby Witt, Ellie De La Cruz, he's been really great, over 149 chances, and he's hitting in the leadoff spot against Patty Corbin, and he's a righty, and he's hit for 12.4% barrel rate. He's got 11 homers on the season and just 149 chances with a ridiculous 324 ISO. So apologies to Tyler Fitzgerald for having said that, you can combine a lot of teams at shortstop. On FanDuel, you can, because he also fits in at second base and outfield. Forgot that he's only shortstop eligible on DraftKings. But those other shortstops, I think we can all agree, are another tier above. So Patrick Corbin, you're just not rostering. 5.88 ERA, a 4.27 xFIP. Yes, that xFIP is significantly better than that ERA, but it comes with a 16.8% strikeout rate. It comes with a very targetable 9% barrels and 46.3% hard hits, 90.8 miles an hour of exit velo. So again, we're looking for 40, we're looking for 90. Well above the mark. He's been lucky to only give up 3.02% home runs so far this year. Last year, that was 4.18 on extremely similar contact. Year before, 3.79 on slightly more elevated contact. He's just targetable for run scoring. He's targetable for home run upside. I really like the spot for the Giants on the other side of this one. And again, they're going to be popular. They're not expensive. They're easy to reach. They combine well with a lot of teams. And we've got some really interesting spots to talk about with Conforto hitting third is really good. And then looking down the lineup, Yastrzemski is in the lineup. He's hitting 9. So obviously the sneakiest way to do that would be a 9, depending on who you're combining with on DK. Fitzgerald is either in or out. But like 9, 2, 3, 4. Maybe 7, 9, 2, 3, 4 on DraftKings if you're doing it that way, because you got Patty Bailey as a pretty high quality catcher in there for just 3,800. And I promise you, if you're putting both Yaz and Conforto into your lineup, you're making a very different Giant stack than anybody else. But you are immediately jumping into the deep end of the pool with the people who are not just going to the most obvious pieces of the Giants. I really don't see justification for going to Corbin at 68. Definitely not on FanDuel. On DK, I don't think he's even really a bargain bin option. He's had some okay outings. 2 starts ago, he faced the Padres. He struck out 7. He gave up 3 earned runs on 4 hits, but he went 7 innings. It's an okay start. He lost the game, but he got the quality start. He did walk 3 and gave up the 3 runs. 6 innings against the Reds, he struck out 6. That was a pretty decent start, his best recent start. A stretch of 4 starts before that, he gave up either 3 or 4 earned runs in all of them. He struck out 5 exactly in 3 of them and 3 in the other one. A lot of mediocrity there. He gave up, season high was 8 earned runs. He's also given up 6 earned, before the most recent game, the season high was 8 earned runs. Also gave up 6 earned runs. That most recent game, when we definitely were targeting him with the Diamondbacks, lasted 3 innings, gave up 13 hits, 10 earned runs, 11 runs total, struck out 3, just 1 home run in that mix. It faced 22 hitters. Total meltdown. That's what we're hoping for again here with the high-quality righties from the Giants. And then Logan Webb, 144 and a third, 23 starts. He gives you fantastic depth most of the time. 3.49 ERA and a 3.31 xFIP. The numbers have been very good in terms of limiting runs overall. Maybe you could argue he's a better real-life pitcher than he is a DFS pitcher. I think that's fair, especially when he's priced at $10,000. At 8,400, I think it matters a lot less on DraftKings. You've got an excellent shot at the win upside here. You've got an excellent shot at 6 or 7 very clean innings. Handful of strikeouts. Nats are not high strikeout, 20.2% strikeout rate. It basically matches his 20%. So 1 in 5. Kind of a number, but if he's facing 28 to 30 hitters, you're still dealing with 5-6 strikeouts. It's not bad. 84 is a very good price for Webb on DraftKings. 10,000 is totally playable on the FanDuel slate. It's just a little bit rougher because he doesn't have that monster strikeout upside. Last year, 22.8. Year before, 20.7. It just kind of is who he is. He's very, very good at keeping the ball down, limiting home runs, 1.17% home run rate against, having a dramatic impact on the already fairly low-end Nationals home run upside. outside of C.J. Abrams, Juan Yepez, maybe some James Wood, maybe some Travis Blankenhorn in this configuration of the lineup. Nobody really draws significant power upside, but he's impacting it. Everybody below 4.2 in the home run model today. 16 home runs and 20 stolen bases for C.J. Abrams. He's always in play. He is a high-end shortstop for a bit of a discount compared to the other very high-end shortstops, but that salary gap is closing, or arguably has closed on DraftKings, and he's in a very bad spot. He'd be the most playable, highest priority national if you're going to those bats. So looking at the Giants, starting with Tyler Fitz, 4,500, 3,500. The DraftKings price continues to be fantastic for a guy who's produced like this over 149 plate appearances. A 180 WRC plus so far this season. Looking back to AAA earlier this year, 87 plate appearances down there. He had 8 home runs in that small sample, 310, 402, 718, a monster 408 ISO. That's obviously small sample. AAA last year in 2023, he hit 20 home runs, stole 29 bases, 287, 358, 499 with a 212 ISO. He's 25, or was 25 last year. He's 26 now. It's not a kid who's going to suddenly, I don't think, rocket to superstardom. But there's obviously talent here. I don't know that he holds down this kind of a line going forward over his next 150 plate appearances. But there's quality here. I think he's worth playing. If you're going to Giants, absolutely worth playing, and especially with the multi-position eligibility on FanDuel. The issue on FanDuel is just they've already jacked his price up to $3,500. Marcana, 35 on DraftKings, 28. Very playable on FanDuel at outfield and first base. 235, 341, 353. He's more of a correlated scoring option. But if we're looking around this team for that stretch of Conforto, Chapman, Casey Schmidt right there that's drawing some pretty decent power numbers, Adar Encarnacion is also in that group. If you're looking at that stretch of hitters in the middle of the lineup to hit home runs, then you probably want the guy who's getting on base at a 341 clip ahead of them for some correlated scoring. And Kana's really cheap on a better team now, so I like the upside going forward for Marcana, and he's at a very fair price. Conforto, again, to reiterate, is very good against lefties, and Patrick Corbin is an extremely targetable lefty. He's going to be lower owned than he should be tonight at 2,900, 3,800, hitting third. His ownership projection probably goes up for the bump in the lineup up to third, but so does the expectation for production. Just going back to that one more time, I mentioned it at the beginning of the show. Conforto this season, in 74 plate appearances against lefties, 4 home runs, a 235 ISO, 294, 351, 529. That's small sample, no doubt about it, but that's great power output, and it maintains his quality. If we look at the career numbers, he diminishes 231, 313, 387, and a 155 ISO. But he's hit 34 of his career home runs in, that's a lot of plate appearances, 969 plate appearances. Given the output this year and the matchup against this lefty, I feel like he was good against lefties elsewhere in his career. Was he good against lefties last year too? No. .2020. That was the season I was thinking of. 284, 384, 486 with a 203 ISO and a 143 WRC plus. 4 home runs in 86 plate appearances. Very similar number of plate appearances. That was in that short COVID 60 game 2020 season. So short sample, you can pick off opportunities where Michael Conforto gives you great numbers against lefties. He hits the ball very hard, 10.1% barrels, 45.2% hard hits on the season. He's got 11 home runs overall, 193 ISO. And again, has seen a ton of success in his 80-some-odd plate appearances against lefties this year. And there are lefties and there are bad lefties like Patrick Corbin. Matt Chapman at 12.9% barrels and 47.5% hard hits. 17 home runs, 12 stolen bases, a 193 ISO as well, 121 WRC plus for him. Excellent right-handed bat at third base. He will be popular. He will be more popular than Conforto will be. Not sure about Tyler Fitz. Those two guys are definitely going to be popular. They're also definitely worth playing against Patrick Corbin. Tons of upside out of them. Really like Chapman. I think Conforto, given the discount to place in the lineup and the lack of ownership, is probably my top priority bet. But the reason I'm going to the Giants and considering them is because you've got a lot of cheap quality right-handed pop in this lineup. Casey Schmidt pulling in an 8.9% barrel, 40% hard hits. He's turned that into 4 home runs and 59 plate appearances so far this year, at 268 ISO. Limited opportunities, obviously, but he fits in at 3 positions in the infield for 2,600 on FanDuel, 2 positions, both middle infield spots on DraftKings for 2,600. You're probably not going to him too frequently. It's funny that I'm now looking at it. They actually have 3 shortstop eligible guys after I was saying they're easy to combine with shortstop teams. But Casey Schmidt, obviously, you're putting him at second base so you can get Fitz or another higher quality shortstop, I think. But second base isn't a terrible spot for him, considering the ability to hit the ball kind of hard against a pretty bad lefty. Eduardo Encarnacion only has 9 plate appearances in the show. I don't think did he have sample last year? No. Schmidt last year, by the way, 5 home runs and 277 chances, a 119 ISO. Oh, wait. I can pull him up here. Encarnacion. 10 home runs in 146 chances in AAA so far this season. 264 ISO, a 352, 438, 616 slash line with a 159 WRC plus. Strikes out a fair amount of the time, but draws a decent walk rate so far this year in AAA. And then with Miami's AAA team last year, 516 plate appearances, basically a full season, 26 home runs, a 224 ISO, struck out 38.8% of the time. That's pretty dramatic as a 25-year-old in AAA, but did draw a 15.1% walk rate, had a respectable 228, 347, 452 slash line, 99 WRC plus. More of an all-or-nothing power bat, but definitely in play against a guy that we're just kind of selling out for some power upside against. 3,000 on DraftKings, 2,500 on FanDuel. Easily playable in the outfield. And again, we're probably looking to extract a few outfielders from this lineup in a lot of the combinations. Patty Bailey, highly playable catcher, 5.5% barrels, 40.9% hard hits, 7 home runs, a 103 WRC plus. He strikes out at a 22% rate, but walks 9.9% of the time. Gets involved enough on offense. I like him better higher up in the lineup, but I think he's playable here, and we're stacking him against Patrick Corbin, so we want to find spots where we can differentiate. Booking a catcher on DraftKings at 3,800 is not a bad option, and there's no real positional blocker. You can consider him a light first baseman on FanDuel, but you could probably do better at the position overall. Marco Luciano at 27-24, probably just a mix and match caliber guy and in a lineup with some shortstop options in it, and where you probably want to get a shortstop from another team if you're not going to Fitz. Mike Yastrzemski at the bottom of the lineup. Again, capable enough against lefties. 8 home runs overall on the season, a 181 ISO. This year, Yastrzemski in just 58 chances. No home runs, 240, 345, 340. So he's been getting on base enough. Be striking out 34.5% of the time. Between Conforto and Yastrzemski, I prefer Conforto. Looking at Yaz's career numbers against lefties. $18 home runs and 573 chances. A 166 ISO, a 90 WRC plus, 224, 299, 390. Not much of a hitter, but there's a little tiny sliver of power in the bat still. 8.2% walks. The walk rate dips, the strikeouts go up in the split against same-handed pitching, but not to tragic levels. I think Yaz is playable. It's just not a great spot hitting 9th in the lineup. But again, if you wanted to include both him and Conforto in your lineup, if you're at all worried about popularity, that's a very easy way to differentiate a giant stack if you're going 5-man. On FanDuel, where you're only getting 4 guys, I'd probably just look to go one of the lefties. I think that's probably a little bit more appropriate. Nationals, again, I think it's a really rough spot to stack against Logan Webb just with his ability to induce ground ball after ground ball. 2.8 degree average launch this year, 0.6 degree last year with a 235% home run rate against, and a 3.1 degree average launch the year before with a 1.40% home run rate. So just really difficult to hit the ball in the air at all or out of the ballpark in general against. Abrams, again, fairly priced, 57.33, a little bit discounted from the other premium shortstops, but he's not quite at that quality, and he's in a worse matchup than most of those guys. Juan Yepez for 41.32, 2 home runs, 330, 385, 15. Still getting on base over 108 plate appearances. He's been pretty good. 148 WRC plus. Hasn't really crushed the ball in terms of hitting for power this year. Just 14.8% strikeouts, though. He's been getting involved and hitting for good average and getting on base, which is how you get involved. So I think he's a playable part in a low-end stack if you're going there. Luis Garcia for 4,800, 3,000. 13 home runs, 17 steals. His best season in recent memory, 290, 322, 460, a 117 WRC plus. Another guy I'll call a playable part, a lefty bat against a extreme ground ball righty. If you're going to Nationals, you could do worse than including Garcia. Keibert Ruiz, 34-25, continues to be favorable just because of how much he puts the ball in play. 11.1% strikeouts, 2.9% walks. Just limited 3% barrels and 24% hard hits. 8 home runs on the season. Very bad output overall. But balls in play are just interesting, especially from a $3,400 catcher hitting cleanup. It's just against Logan Webb, they're just likely to be groundouts. James Wood, with all his ability to hit the ball, hasn't really seen great results yet. 257, 341 is good on the front end of the triple slash. A 105 WRC plus, 2 home runs and 123 chances. We just haven't seen the power that we were expecting. 119 ISO, just the 2 homers, but 3 steals. The output is fine overall. The 11.8% barrels, 52.9% hard hits is encouraging for the fact that the power is going to arrive in short order. Blankenhorn, 3.14 in the home run model. I'll give him that much. Lefty bat for 2,100 on in the outfield on DraftKings and 2,100 at second base on FanDuel. Different kind of a play across sites. Hasn't done anything in 12 plate appearances. Mix and match quality option. Alex Call, 2,526. Mediocre, especially against a righty. The 241 WRC plus is deceptive. It comes in just 40 plate appearances. He was good in that stretch. He had his moments last year, but mix and match quality player overall. Ildemaro Vargas, switch hitter. Cheap infielder, 4 positions on FanDuel. 269, 321, 353, but kind of empty overall with just 1 home run, 7 steals on 91 WRC plus. And then Jacob Young, 26 stolen bases despite just a 313 on base. In spite of that quality, just creating runs at an 80 WRC plus, 20 points below average. Pretty awful option on the slate today for the Nats, I think. Giants bats way up top. Logan Webb after that. No way I'm rostering Patrick Corbin. Nationals bats at best a couple mix and match starts across a big pool of lineups, but wouldn't be a priority even in like a 20 lineup build. I don't know that I get to a share of Nats. Astros and the Rangers. Looks like we've got the Rangers, not the Astros. Joker's here to tell everybody he likes the the Giants as well. Where did I just say we have? The Rangers. So it's Andrew Heaney. It's Hunter Brown. Two, well, I was going to say pretty different pitchers, but in some ways not so much. 22.6% strikeouts for the lefty veteran Heaney. 25.3% better, obviously, on Hunter Brown's side. Hunter Brown's walking more, though. 8.8% walks against Heaney's 6.6. 4.12 and a 4.11 ERA match pretty well. Hunter Brown's obviously got the better mark by stuff plus by a pretty dramatic degree, and that's where you gain some separation. That's where I say I think he is actually the more talented at this point of these two pitchers. We've seen Andrew Heaney put up some pretty big strikeout numbers in the show in the past. We've also seen him get dinged to a worser degree for home run upside than he's given up this year. There's always some give and take between those two with this pitcher. I think against the Astros, I would much rather have Astros bats against Heaney, and I have enough faith in Hunter Brown where I wouldn't have a problem having him against the Rangers. It's just factoring in the $9,600 price tag on both sites and him falling below a number of other good options at similar or lower prices. Don't know how great an option he is for DFS today. Not that I'm really drawn to Rangers bats against, but there's a lot of good players in that lineup. Brown's been good at limiting premium contact. That's spectacular at 86.4 miles an hour of exit velo and 31.5% hard hits, 4.9% barrels, a very manageable 10-degree average launch. Probably a little bit of bad luck there, honestly, in the 3% home run rate. It's different for the other guy. 40% hard hits and 89.7 miles an hour of exit velo. We're at the threshold and just below it on a 19.7 degree average launch. Last year, we were a little bit better, 3.59% home runs. So he's, well, more barrels allowed last year. That's where the difference lies. And then 2 years ago, it was just tragic for both premium contact hard hits, exit velo, everything you could want, 4.52% home runs. So he's been a little bit better in terms of the contact that he's allowed this season. Last time out, he gave up 6 earned runs. The game before that, he gave up 4 earned runs. Game against St. Louis on the road and Toronto on the road. Struck out 4 of the Blue Jays in 2 games ago. Struck out 2 Cardinals in his last start. Didn't give up a home run in either of those games, but obviously a lot of runs scored. Was pretty decent over a stretch before that, though. Mixed results in terms of quality starts. There's a couple in here, but most of these outings he's going 5 and change. But he had a run from April 25th where he gave up 4 earned runs to Seattle, struck out 7. From that start, or his next start on May 1st, through 2 starts back on July 26th, he gave up 3 or fewer runs in every single one of those outings. Some of them were short, a couple of innings. He gave up a handful of runs. Some of them he didn't pitch all that efficiently. Some of them he didn't find strikeout upside. He's been kind of all over the map this season in terms of the results, but he's managed to avoid the total meltdowns. Had a 6 earned run game against this Houston team back at the beginning of the season. But the last time he faced him, he went 5 innings, gave up just 3 runs, 2 earned on 5 hits, struck out 5, walked 2, gave up 2 home runs. That's the kind of start that we're looking for in terms of the 2 home runs. I would venture to guess that the Astros left a few men on base in that one. I'm just more inclined to grab Astros bats. I really am. You can see the pretty beefy home run totals up toward the top of the lineup, and then a handful of guys in the 5s and 6s for home run upside. You can see some quality on base percentages, the ability to draw a walk for some of these guys, and some very, very low strikeout rates among their key hitters. Difficult team to grab a pitcher against, and Heaney's not the guy to do it. If you're going to Astros bats, the projected version of the lineup is probably very similar to what we'll end up getting. Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez is almost certain to be intact as the top 3. Altuve, 14 home runs, 15 steals, a 351 on base. Great for individual output at second base. Great for correlated scoring. 53.36, totally manageable price tag for a very, very good player. 4,400, 3,300 for Alex Bregman is honestly perfectly fine. Still very cheap on DraftKings. A little bit more expensive, but manageable at 33 on FanDuel. You can see the 9.11 in the home run model. It's in spite of limited premium contact. It's kind of who Alex Bregman is. 14 home runs for him, a 157 ISO, a 102 WRC+. He's dropped down to 249. I think he was at like 258 as the high the other day, but he mostly turned the season around, and I like it to continue as we go through the season. He's very low strikeout, a lot of well-struck balls in play. Well-struck was the wrong way to put that. A lot of quality balls in play with home run upside. He's weird to explain because of that 4.6% barrels in the 38s in the hard hit range, and that's over the last few seasons. Jordan Alvarez is spectacular. Don't worry about lefty-lefty. He's one of the best, if not the best, lefty-lefty hitter in baseball. 5,600, 3,800, 20 home runs on the season, a 227 ISO. Absolute masher. If he goes under owned and you're stacking Astros, he's the priority bat on this team. So take advantage of it if he's under owned in public projections. Jainer Diaz for 43, 31, 10 home runs for him. He's slashing 296, 320, 442. Very healthy season out of him. He's not the major home run hitter that maybe some other catcher options are, but he's very good. That's not a bad home run total for a catcher, and he's hitting for a great average. He's got a 111 WRC+. He's putting the ball in play very, very frequently with a 14.7% strikeout rate and just 3.9% walks, and he hits it really hard, 45.8% hard hits on the season, 43.9% last year, 50% the year before. Jainer Diaz is a good catcher option at 4,300 on DK. As I always say, playable as your first baseman from this team at 31 on FanDuel. You want to just go 4-man off the top and pretend he's their first baseman? There's nothing wrong with that. Jeremy Pena, 41, 3,000. If you're not going to Jainer Diaz, he's your next man in. 9 homers, 12 steals, 98 WRC+. Mixed quality overall, not great, but good and playable at shortstop. It's just, as I always point out with him, you're probably going to the other shortstop if you're going to a high-end team with the Astros. If you're going to a lower-end team, like if I was putting them together even with the Giants, I would probably go Tyler Fitz from the leadoff spot over Jeremy Pena. But those are comparable-ish kind of players. If I was going to them in the Royals, I'm going to be damn sure to put Bobby Witt in my lineup instead of Jeremy Pena. But he is one of the better guys in that, like, no, I'd knock you out in exchange for a star, but I'd rather have you than a lot of other options. Jake Myers at 6.60 was the home run pick from the Astros today. Not the overall home run pick, just the home run pick from the Astros. He's got 11 on the season, a 166. I figure why not. John Singleton, a little bit of lefty pop. He's got 9 homers on the season, a 6.37 in the home run model. He's cheap. He's fine. I'd prefer just to grab shares of Jainer Diaz at first base on FanDuel. At first base on DraftKings, he's in the mix for some shares because he's very, very cheap and does have a little bit of upside for a home run. Mauricio Dubon, mix and match quality. He plays 4 positions on FanDuel. That's where he's got appeal. At just the outfield, he's kind of just another outfielder at 2,700 on DraftKings. And then Pedro Leon from the bottom of the lineup, 2,000 across sites. Got to look at him real quick. 19 home runs and 23 steals in 424 chances in AAA so far this year. That's pretty good. 21 homers, 21 steals in 564 last year. And 17 homers, 38 steals in 504 chances in AAA the year before. Those were his 24, 25, and this year is his age 26 season. So he's pushing the upper edge of age for the AAA level through those last 2 years. Not really in the 2022 season, a little bit more so last year. But it's understandable that given this team's talent level that he was blocked for a while. If you're going to Astros, seems like a pretty compelling option for basically the mid price. 5.49 in the home run model is reflecting a little bit of that power upside. Probably going to be a little bit sneaky if he's hitting all the way 9th. If he's hitting like 7th, more appealing. Definitely keep Pedro Leon in mind. I wasn't really thinking about him before now, but obviously those are some pretty killer. That's 3 straight killer seasons in AAA. How the hell do you put up those 3 straight seasons and have... Graphs has him as the 30th organizational prospect? Maybe because of his age? Traditional scouting grades are not good, but that is literally 3 straight seasons at the second highest level of professional baseball. Arguably the NPB is better, but I don't think so. Interesting. Where does MLB have him? '24. I've got him as more of a speed prospect in their traditional scouting over on MLB. This is this year. 50 grade hit tool, 65 run though, 70 arms, so he's gaining a little bit of prospect pedigree from fielding too, which isn't ideal. Oh, that might be why they don't like him. He's only 5'9". 5'9", 170. He's a little guy. It's like, well, I certainly outweigh him, but he's around my height. Interesting to keep in mind, though, down lineup. Considering those seasons in AAA, 3 straight years, and the price, and the fact that it's probably not going to be that popular, not a bad bat to throw at Heaney. On the Rangers side, it's their usual lineup. Josh Smith in the leadoff role pretty regularly these days. We're down to 372 on the on base. He's got to do me a little bit better than that because I've been saying that I think the on base might continue to be successful with everything else kind of declining back toward the X stats. And that's begun. He's at 279, 372, 437. Still creating runs 29% better than average. Was never really hitting the ball all that hard, but managed to find 11 home runs earlier in the year. 7 stolen bases. He was very good for this team throughout most of the season. He's not high priced. I do think in the leadoff spot, especially considering the season long on base number, he's very, very playable. But Hunter Brown is good. So not the best option in the world, but at those prices, if you're going to the Rangers, you can kind of prioritize some Smith shares. Corey Seager behind him, obviously their top priority bat overall. 22 home runs from the shortstop, 277, 359, 491, a 213 ISO, a 132 WRC plus. He's really their only star who's doing basically everything pretty well. And even with that, those are kind of diminished numbers from Seager. The good news is the 15.5% barrels is basically an exact match for 15.2 from last year. 51.3% hard hits is elite. We're down 2 points from last year, but it's acceptably still elite at 51.3. Marcus Semien nowhere near those numbers, but he never really is. He's around his usual numbers, 6.3% barrels, 36% hard hits, basically a dead even match from last year's output. 244, 316, 406. He's been diminished this year. He has hit 16 home runs, just a 161 ISO, but does have a 101 WRC plus at least. You're not going to the Rangers and then skipping Marcus Semien when he's discounted like this at second base all that often. The price especially just continues to make him a priority bat, and he puts the ball in play like crazy. We've seen way better seasons from him over time. Hitting third is interesting now. I still like the hitter, and if he falls by the wayside in people's Ranger stacks, take advantage. Josh Young in the cleanup spot, 4,200, 2,900, has mashed when he's made contact in his limited 36 plate appearances this year. He's done very well in that tiny sample. He's hit 3 home runs, 190 WRC plus. Last year he hit for a good amount of power, 23 home runs over 515 chances, a 201 ISO. He created runs 10% better than average. Only got on at a 315 clip, had an okay slash line, but could do better in that department. If he continues obviously along this track, he's made great strides at the plate. But this is a good hitter. At third base for just 4,200, 2,900, that is a key investment in this lineup if you're going to this team. It's just, again, I don't necessarily love drawing against Hunter Brown in this spot. Wyatt Langford, a lot of talent, less so in terms of the results. 6 home runs, 9 steals, and 89 WRC plus. There is definitely a bat lurking here, though. 4,100, 2,800, a lot of ability. Probably less popular than some of his teammates, even within Rangers stacks, in what will be a less than popular overall lineup. Wyatt Langford is a very good option from the mid-range. Nathaniel Lowe, very good option for a cheap price at first base, 37, 3,000. Slashing 263, 357, 386, more of a correlated scoring option. I would expect to see him pop up higher in the lineup if Josh Smith continues to trend downward. They might take a crack with Nathaniel Lowe hitting ahead of those premium bats, given his extended sample of skills getting on base. 112 WRC plus out of him, totally playable. Adolis Garcia has gotten just stupid cheap on DraftKings at 4,300. FanDuel holding the line a little bit at 32, but that's come down significantly and makes him very cheap. 18 home runs, 9 stolen bases. I get it why he's cheap. 209, 273, 387. 20% worse than average creating runs so far this year. That's bad. But for DFS purposes, I'll ride a little bit of speed and some stolen base upside when he chooses to run. I'll ride the 18 home runs, the power upside that I know is in there, given the 39 home runs he hit last year, the 27 he hit the year before, the 11.8% barrels and 47.9% hard hits that he's holding down this year. I'm continuing to be a buyer on Adolis Garcia. I'll ride it to the bottom, honestly, with that player. I think he's an extreme talent. The results obviously come and go, but the talent is very real and very high end. Leody Taveras and Carson Kelly, mix and match quality players at the bottom of the lineup. You can do worse than both of those guys. 9 home runs, 12 steals out of Taveras with an 82 WRC plus. Kelly beating him out in terms of run creation at 104 over his 210 plate appearances. 7 home runs, no steals from the catcher. Reasonable enough catcher bat. 9 spot, obviously not ideal, but you can't really move him up considering the quality of hitters from 1 through 7. So this lineup does kind of run 9 deep for a fair price today. Brown's just not all that targetable. His ability to really significantly limit premium contact is interesting. His strikeout rate is interesting enough. I just don't like where he's priced on either side. So it's difficult to envision a ton of shares of him at those prices outside of maybe some ownership angles. And it's kind of difficult to envision some Rangers. I'm going to say Astros bats, Hunter Brown, Rangers bats. They are on the board. Again, that is a 9-man lineup basically. And they're not expensive. Andrew Heaney not as on the board as the Rangers lineup. That said, at 6,400, I wouldn't begrudge you a few shares if you told me you had him. I wouldn't tell you were making a mistake at 64. That's cheap enough to justify it given his quality numbers this season. Right? He's been better at limiting the contact. The ERA is not awful. The XFIP is not revealing anything we don't already know. He's got a very solid 12% swinging strike rate, 22.6% strikeout rate, and just to reiterate, this is a guy that was at 23.6% last year and a monster 35.5 over 72 and 2/3 2 years ago. So Heaney's on the board, but he's the fourth option out of 4 in this game. 6,400. Really don't know how on the board he is at 84 on FanDuel. Get ready for another one of my favorite types of plays, these uncomfortable pitching options. These pitching options that it's like, oof, boy. Did good old Terry finally go around the bend? What is he talking about here? We've hit a couple of them. We've missed a couple of them recently. But I think we've definitely got one on our hands today with David Festa at 6,100 on the DraftKings slate, 6,700 on the FanDuel slate. You can see pretty solid projection. That comes in spite of his 6.98 ERA, his 7.06% home run rate. Like I said, I'm going to be talking about this pitcher, despite what you're going to see are monster home run numbers for some of these Cubs. Remember that the home run model and home runs themselves work on an individual event basis. Just because this is saying that, hey, it's really likely that one of these 4 guys is going to hit a home run today, or it's better than average likelihood, that is not necessarily a dramatic indicator that the Cubs stack goes off. What I like about the Cubs, though, in situations like this, more so than with other teams, where you see, all right, they've got a lot of power upside, but it's the Rockies on a day where you've got like Talia, McMahon, and Tovar all in like this kind of territory, let's say. Everybody surrounding those hitters gets on base at like a 280 clip. With the Cubs, you're at least buying into a stack where those top 5 have an average of 341 on base. If you want to extend it to 6, it's 339. It's just these bottom 3 guys that are a little bit limited in terms of on base. Dansby in the past has been a good on base option. He's been way better than he is at everything this year. Cor Armstrong, we'll see what he becomes. Right now, not so much. And then Miguel Amaya is just in there to catch the ball, really. But you do get the benefit for the idea that, yeah, they look like they're just home run and just drawing home run upside. It's not a great Vegas total. That among a lot of other teams, this would be a little bit even worse potentially as like a deceptive looking power spot. Because these guys do get on base. So you do have the chance that if, say, Cody Bellinger hits his home run, maybe 2 of these 3 guys are on base for it. Do they manage to do that twice is where the major upside would come from. So again, I do think they're deceptive, but I think that deceptiveness is tempered somewhat by their good on base skills. I'm going to both sides this entire conversation, by the way. Festa can answer that on base ability because a lot of it comes from these great double-digit walk rates that a lot of those guys have. Festa right now is walking in his 19 1/3 innings in the show, 3 starts and a relief appearance, just 4.7% of hitters. If we want to look back to Festa's minor league numbers that I had on the screen before but I went away from. In 15 starts, 60 1/3 innings in AAA this year, he's got a 10.2% walk rate, notably higher. Could feed the Cubs and their upside. But if I'm going to use that, I've also got to counter that with a 34.9% strikeout rate in AAA this year. In 19 starts and 80 innings in AAA last year, 27.8% strikeouts, 16.7% walks. So I don't know that I fully believe that this is going to be maintained at this level. If it is, he's obviously taken a leap along with his promotion to the show. But what I do think very clearly is that this is a kid who is capable of striking hitters out at the major league level, demonstrably so at 24.7% in the limited sample, and with that significant AAA numbers. And he's facing a team that strikes out at a pretty significant clip against right-handed pitching. Switch this to righties. Oh, that is not the team board anymore. Team stats. %23.6% for the full roster. If we go to the active, it's 22.6%. So 23-ish percent strikeout rate for the Cubs against right-handed pitching this year. Pretty strong target. So I like Festa at these prices. I think he's got upside. I think he's got a monster basement. So it's a kid who can absolutely climb the ladder, get you up onto the roof, but he could also just fall off the ladder, go right through one of those, like, those, what are those, the storm entrances to the cellar, like they have in the Midwest, and then like get the house blown off the thing by a tornado and get sucked away in the tornado as well. Like, that's what the downside looks like, given all the power that he's given up in the show so far. It again amounts to a home run in every one of his outings. That's 3 starts and 1 relief appearance. In the relief appearance, it was a full bulk relief appearance. He went 4 1/3, faced 19 hitters, struck out 7. That was against the Phillies. 7 Ks, 1 home run allowed. That was the only earned run, 4 hits. Against the Mets in his most recent outing, that was a full start. He went 5, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, struck out 6, gave up a homer. But that's a quality, not a quality start. That's a quality outing for DFS purposes. It is, by the letter of the law, not a quality start. He also took the loss in that one, but that's through no fault of his own. That's a decent start. 5 innings against the Tigers was a meltdown. He gave up 7 earned runs. That was his second outing in the show back on July 3rd. He struck out 6, but he gave up 3 homers in that game. That was the total blow-up. First start was against Arizona. Mediocre game, gave up 5 earned on 7 hits, struck out just 2, walked 1, gave up a home run. Somehow managed to win the game. So again, given the Cubs' propensity to strike out against righties, given the upside for the Twins to help him out and get to the win bonus, I'm liking the Festa spot for a cheap dart throw, guys. I really am. I don't know that it's as good just because the Cubs, I do continue to think, are a better opponent than some of those teams. We had the, who was it that we had the darts last week against the Rockies, right? Or one was with the Rockies against the Giants, and one was, or against the, whatever it was. You guys know who I'm talking about. I don't think I have quite that level of confidence. It was Fulmer and Freeland, I think. But we're at least continuing the F trend. Fulmer, Freeman, Festa, get them on board. Kyle Hendricks is a hard no on the other side of this game. 6.86 ERA, 4.44 xFIP. The xFIP is obviously 2.5 runs better than the ERA is, but he's given up 4.58% home runs despite being decent at limiting hard hits, limiting premium contact. Just when he makes mistakes, they just travel this year. He's just at the end of the line. Always has been a soft tossing pitch to contact kind of a guy, pitching to a Twins team that can absolutely find some of that contact, that has major power upside. I'm just leaning into the Twins, and especially with where those ownership numbers were. Happy to have them. They're not high priced either. Am I crazy, or did DraftKings just dramatically drop pricing on like everybody today? Look at where the Twins are priced. Outside of Royce Lewis, who's very affordable at $5,300 given his output this year. In 135 plate appearances, Royce Lewis has hit 13 home runs. He's got a 398 ISO, a 187 WRC+. I will point out, though, just for fun, it's 256 plate appearances. It's a chunk more. He's obviously not the hitter that Royce Lewis is. But the thing that's always drawn the the highlight packages and the buzz on Royce Lewis is the home run output. I got Michael Talia, man. 19 home runs in 256 plate appearances. That's not far off that home run pace. He's just nowhere near the hitter that Royce Lewis is. Lewis does a lot of things well. 288, 370, 686 on the year. But Willie Castro at the top of the lineup for just 44, 3,000. Coming off a big day. He's very, very good for correlated scoring, if nothing else at all. He's scored 63 times this season. 351 on base, creating runs 20% better than average. He's got the ability to drive the ball. He's hit 8 home runs this year, stolen 10 bases. The output and counting stats is down a little bit, but overall, having a better season. Second base and shortstop on DraftKings. You know I want him at second base, not short, but 4,400, totally manageable price-wise. 3,000 on FanDuel is also manageable, but I feel like DraftKings a little bit cheaper. 4 positions on the FanDuel slate. Trevor Larnach, 8.82 in the home run model. He's got 11 on the season in just 255 plate appearances. Lefty bat against a super gettable righty. 10.2% barrels and 43.8% hard hits. The monster numbers out of Royce Lewis are supporting a 17.06, by the way, in the home run model. Should have easily made him the home run pick of the day, but didn't. Matt Wallner with his dramatically good contact. Over 93 plate appearances, but it was maintained in previous samples. He's hit 6 home runs, 351 ISO, 179 WRC+. plus. So again, just with the frequency of contact that's available against Kyle Hendricks, even though he doesn't give up regular monster contact, he's just giving up so much volume of contact that eventually guys like this just break through with their ability to hit the ball. So I really like the upside for power from the top end of the Twins here. And then you get a pretty good spread of options down lower in the lineup with Max Kepler, Ryan Jeffers, Carlos Santana. All 3 of those guys have good power upside. Kepler a little bit diminished this year in the home run model. He's only hit 7 on the year in 319 plate appearances, but overall he hasn't been bad. 265, 318, 409, creating runs 5% better than average. Not really striking out, not really drawing many walks. We just aren't getting the hard hits and the power output that we're used to getting out of Max Kepler, but he's still a good quality lefty bat for a very cheap price. Jeffers, 9.5% barrels is appealing from a cheap catcher later in this lineup. 16 home runs on the season, a 225 ISO. People tend to sleep on Ryan Jeffers in stacks of Twins, and I don't think that's totally warranted. On FanDuel, say it with me, you can play him like he's a first baseman. No issues with rotating shares of him and Carlos Santana here. Santana is another player who's very low strikeout at 17%, 10% walks on the season. He's hit 14 home runs, creating runs 13% better than average. He's just not a regular contributor in any one thing. He'll have a good game for power, then he'll go a handful of games with just decent correlated scoring numbers. But for the money, you can absolutely deploy shares and just hope to catch that big swing. Manny Margot is more here to play defense. Austin Martin is supposed to have a good bat. Hasn't really flashed it all that frequently, over 161 chances. More of a put the ball in play and correlate kind of a guy. Not really doing so right now. But 1 through 7, very appealing. And both these guys are playable. I probably prefer Austin Martin a little bit, just given the slightly cheaper pricing in the outfield. If you need to stick him at second base, you can. I think for every share of David Festa, you should have 3/4 of a share of Cubs. I prefer Festa. I want to take the opportunity at that value play. But I'm very concerned about the basement, and I think you should absolutely hedge any position you take, given those monster power numbers. It's just, again, to reiterate, it's just a matter of who's on base when one of those home runs goes over the wall and how many times can they replicate that scenario where somebody or 2 guys are on base and they manage to connect for the power shot. And it obviously doesn't have to be a home run. You could have a couple guys on base clearing double, follow that up with another double, so on and so forth. And the Cubbies are good for that. Independent of Festa shares, they're on the board given their power upside, but DFS projection-wise, they fell a little bit short of some of the other teams. So if you're just looking at the raw projection numbers, especially when you get down toward the bottom of the lineup and you're dragged down a little bit by Crow Armstrong and by Miguel Amaya, they're very lower projections. Same thing with Nico, honestly, and Dansby. At this point, they're pretty limited in their projections as well. So it's more of a hunting for power or hoping you get that right day where they do happen to get on and provide that correlated scoring play than what some of these guys look like. The obvious guys from the top, Ian Happ, 4,500, 3,100, 17 home runs, a 202 ISO this season, 117 WRC+. Plus. Doesn't hit for average very much, but gets on base very regularly and hits the ball pretty hard. Draws a lot of walks, strikes out at a decent clip, but obviously killer number in the home run model. Michael Busch, also a killer option in the home run model. I believe he's who I made the home run pick of the day. Oh, he's down to, I didn't notice he's down to just first base eligibility on FanDuel, so we lost the killer second base eligibility finally. Womp womp. Still playable at first. No issues with it, especially because you get Cody in the outfield on DraftKings. You get first and third on Isaac Paredes. Same thing on FanDuel. First and outfield eligibility for Cody Bellinger. First and third for Isaac Paredes. So you can still play all those guys together. Just a little bit more limited in terms of not being able to pick off second base with Bush on FanDuel anymore. 15 home runs, a 199 ISO out of him, 127 WRC plus. Very effective season so far. Decent power bat. Strikes out a lot, but draws walks, so he stays involved. Paredes and Bellinger do not strike out that much, 16% apiece. Paredes draws more walks than Bellinger does. 16 home runs for him. He's hit for a little bit more power, 184 ISO, 124 WRC plus, but we know Belly's got power upside as well. Very, very good hitter in the cleanup spot. 57 on DraftKings is oddly high priced. 3,200 on FanDuel, not high priced at all. Not entirely sure how DraftKings arrived at the $5,700 price, considering that Bellinger's having an okay but not great season, and what they've done with so many other guys that are in that kind of a bucket. Like, what is Bellinger doing that's justifying the 57 other than being named Cody Bellinger? That's so weird that they would have him there where everybody else in the way they're pricing him. Like fucking Royce Lewis on the other side of this game against Kyle Hendricks is 5,300. Cody Bellinger's 57. I guess maybe because of the home runs that Fest has given up, but again, that's yes, it's home runs in every game. Yes, it's a monster percentage so far. But in reality, it amounts to 6 home runs to like 87, 88 hitters. That's not exactly a huge sample. It's just weirdly priced. But Bellinger's always in play. If you're going to Cubs, you're not leaving Cody Bellinger out all that many times. Mike Tauchman, on-base machine, 346 on-base percentage, a 109 WRC+. plus. I'd kind of rather have Tauchman hitting second. Actually, that's not true, because Bush gets on at the same 346 clip. I just like Tauchman, and I like his ability to get involved, but when he's hitting ahead of Horner, Swanson, Armstrong, and Crow Armstrong and Miguel Amaya, it's a little bit more difficult for him to provide that actual upside. But sneaky option, 3,400, 2,600, not expensive at all. Maybe he's the guy who ends up driving the other ones in today. Nico, 42.29, more of a table setter. 327 on base, 19 stolen bases, at 93 WRC+. plus. He's fine, mix and match caliber player. Dansby at 35, again, just having a really bad season at 223, 296, 348, 82 WRC+. plus. Rough year out of him, but a player that we've really liked over time. Hits for a lot of power in the past and is still managing to make good contact this year. 8.9% barrels is down 2 points from last year, but the hard hits are up. Everything else is completely sucked this year, but I'll take those things to justify a little bit of quality here. 10.54 in the home run model to back that up. Crow Armstrong plays good defense and steals the occasional base, but gets on at a 248 clip, and his creator runs 40% worse than average, kind of offsets the good defense. And then Miguel Amaya, just a mix and match catcher. Twins bats. David Festa value shares. The Cubs are right on his heels, though. That is right there. Like I said, ultimately, I think it is more a spot where a home run, maybe 2 home runs, but do you get more than that? With the Cubs, the answer for them, given their on-base skills, can be a little bit more yes than if it was against, say, the White Sox or the A's or a team like, one of those teams. Just because they do get on base a little bit. But I do still think it falls more into that bucket of this looks like a good spot to pick off a home run or 2, but maybe not the big monster 10-run stacking spot. Red Sox, Royals, James Paxton, Brady Singer. I love the idea of targeting Paxton with Royals bats, especially if they're going to be under-owned, which it looked like at least RG was expecting earlier. It's kind of surprising to me. I thought it was going to be a spot that people were going to flock to. But if they're not, I'm happy to take shares there. It's a team we've gone to a lot this season. It's a team with a superstar and a lot of quality bats. At the same time, the Red Sox definitely in consideration on the other side of this game. A lot of quality lefties up toward the top of this lineup. This one in particular tends to go under-owned constantly and completely unjustifiably when he's facing a gettable righty. Brady Singer at 8,300 on DraftKings is playable. He's got a 2.88 ERA this season, but a 3.62 xFIP is the more correct number. It's the real number. 85.32 is kind of revealing about the quality by Stuff Plus. 15 points below average, but he makes it work. 7% walks, 22.2% strikeouts, a decent 10.1% swinging strike rate, but nothing special. 28.7% CSW is a little bit on the lower side than you'd want it, but it's also not tragic. 8.1% barrels, a little bit higher than you'd want it, but not tragic. Slightly below 40, a little bit below 90. Manageable home runs this year. It was mostly the same in terms of the manageability of the home runs last year, but he gave up a lot more in terms of premium contact. You can see that hard hit is nearly 10 points higher. The exit velo was 3 key miles per hour higher. XFIP was higher. The ERA was substantially higher. Strikeouts were lower. 2 years ago, strikeouts were a little bit higher. Contact was similar. Home run output was similar. So I think on the right day, and he's proven it a few times, you could catch a big strikeout upswing from Brady Singer. The Red Sox are a little bit gettable for Ks at 24%. But I think we tend to agree that we target this team a little bit more when there's a lefty on the mound than when there's a righty who is a little bit gettable for power. It would not knock me out of my chair if Brady Singer had a serviceable day, even a good day. He's had enough good days this year, and he's got enough talent that it wouldn't totally surprise me. Again, we're coming off 3 straight 7-inning starts. They were against the White Sox, the Cubs, and the White Sox, respectively. So take it for what it's worth. Against this same Boston team, the start before that stretch, in Fenway, to be fair, 2 2/3, 4 earned on 8 hits, 3 strikeouts, a walk, 2 home runs allowed. I don't know. Nothing predictive about that, but maybe a little bit indicative of what that Red Sox lefty-heavy top end is capable of doing. I don't remember who hit those home runs against. I probably had the Red Sox that day, but not Dom Smith, and it was probably Dom Smith that hit it. I'm going to say that's almost definitely what happened. Wait, when was that game? 14th. It was 100% Dom Smith. Rafi Devers and Dom Smith hit the 2 home runs. Devers in the first, Dom Smith in the second. At least Willie Abreu scored on the Dom Smith home run. I had a feeling it was that game. James Paxton, I really don't think we're going to against a pretty good Royal squad that has a effectively low 17.3% strikeout rate this year. Same group of hitters last year, 20.7%. That's also still effectively low, especially against a version of Paxton that this year has a 16.8% strikeout rate on 8.8% swinging, 22.9% CSW, 73 rating by Stuff Plus. Ouch. 4.52 ERA is high and bad and ugly. The 5.29 xFIP is worse. 11.9% walks. This is a very, very targetable pitcher. Bobby Witt above the magic number. Sal Perez above the magic number. Vinny Pasquantino, believable upside, even lefty-lefty. Hunter Renfroe kind of coming around for the season up to 11 home runs. There's a lot of quality in this Royals lineup. They're rolling with some of their lefties. Michael Massey in the 6th spot. Even Kyle Isbell down lineup. So they're not worried, obviously, about Paxton. I think we're just looking at bats here, guys. Starting on the Red Sox side, all 4 of those lefties are in play. All 4 of those lefties are in play just as a straight stack off the top. They're easy to afford given we're in the 4-man site. That becomes an average of $3,300 apiece for a stack that includes Devers and Duran. On DraftKings, let's say you include Connor Wong in the catcher spot, which we typically like doing. That becomes a $4,700, $4,760 for a stack that includes Devers, Wong, Duran, obviously Yoshida and Abreu. Again, I feel like DraftKings is really pricing things down today. Jarren Duran's only got a 9.5% barrel and 45.1% hard hits. He's only hit 14 home runs and stolen 26 bases while slashing 296, 354, 514 with a 218 ISO and creating runs 35% better than average. Why would we want him against a really gettable righty? premium spot, 58.36. It's not like he's mispriced, but the guys below him, just like being that low priced, just makes the stack so affordable. Willier, 4,200, 2,900, slashing 275, 339, 519 across 292 plate appearances. He's hit 12 home runs and stolen 7 bases. He's got a 244 ISO, 131 WRC plus. I don't really care that he strikes out 28.1% of the time. The walk rate is effective enough at 8.9%, and he crushes the ball. 12.6% barrels and 49.7% hard hits this season. He's a killer from the left side. Love the spot in the lineup. Love the price. Absolutely a key part of Red Sox stacks for me. Yoshida for 4,000, 2,800. Hasn't had the great output so far this year, but he's been fine. 265, 343. At worst, he's a correlated scoring option from the left side for a very cheap price that, again, just helps average that stack down. He's been at league average for run creation so far this year. Last year, he was 9 points above, had 15 homers, 8 stolen bases, got on a 338 clip. Very solid slash line. He's a good lefty hitter. Interestingly, if you're stacking the Red Sox, thinking it through with the Giants, then you can go Fitz and you want to limit more the Giants that are coming from the outfield. Having 3 Red Sox that you'd want in the outfield, maybe not ideal for creating combinations with some teams, but it makes them work really well with other teams. Like, let's say you were looking to game stack this game. Having 3 Red Sox outfielders, a third baseman, and a catcher when Sal has first base eligibility. That works. And then your shortstop is Bobby Witt. I mean, this is obviously an expensive way to do it. I wonder what let's see what the total would be. That plus that totals to 30,000, 5,000 apiece. It's a little high. If you threw in Sal, that becomes 35.4, 5,000 apiece. I don't know what you're getting to along with that, but it's a compelling combination is what I was driving at. But these 3 guys all being outfielders isn't totally ideal, but I think it's still playable, and there are teams that it'll fit together well with. Devers is a superstar third baseman, 61, 4,000. He's hit 25 home runs. He's got a 301 ISO on the year. Absolute killer at third, 14.6% barrels, 55% hard hits. Connor Wong just remains too cheap where you have to play the position. I do not get him being 3,700. Over 330 plate appearances, he's maintained a 301, 361, 445. His created runs 23% better than average. He's got 10 home runs, which isn't bad output for a catcher. And he's demonstrably been better for premium contact in seasons past. So, if anything, there's upside to come from Connor Wong. Dom Smith, lefty, 6 home runs on the year. Got us for that one against Singer the last time out. So maybe a little bit of upside for Dom Smith on the right day, but not my favorite bat, even with the left-handedness. Nick Sogard, mix and match option at short. You're probably not going to a shortstop from this team unless it's David Hamilton, and he has second base eligibility on both sides, so you probably just put him there. 47-27 for Hamilton. He's hit 6 home runs, stolen 28 bases in just 252 chances, 141 ISO and a 91 WRC plus. The quality is mixed, but the counting stats are real. Sedan Rafaela takes that to an even further degree. 88 WRC plus, but through the traditional back of the baseball card stats, 55 runs scored, 13 homers, 57 ribbies, 16 stolen bases, and 411 chances. If we're just looking for a cheap way to fill some counting stats and wrap back around to the top of the lineup, I just wish he was getting base at better than a 286 clip. This would actually be a really, really good player if he could just manage to put, ideally like 40 points on top of that. But just get me above 300 as a starting point, and you're already immediately a better player. 4 positions, though, on FanDuel, shortstop and outfield on DraftKings. Pretty appealing. On the Royals side, Michael Garcia back in the leadoff role, 43-28. As we've talked about all season, he's not suited for that role, but given that nobody else that they would consider putting up there might as well just give him the plate appearances and see if he can do anything with it. 6 home runs, 27 stolen bases in kind of a mixed season for him. 73 WRC plus is not good, but he's low strikeout, fairly low walk, puts the ball in play, hits a pretty hard, 42% hard hit rate. Thought we were going to have a better season overall out of Garcia, but he has scored a whole ton of runs. So at the very least, I do think there's realistic correlated scoring there, even with the weak on base. Bobby Witt's an absolute superstar, the example of shortstops that you want to pay up for. 20 home runs, 25 steals, a 246 ISO, 166 WRC plus. Vinny for just 5,000, 3,300. I put him into the lineup for the Dynasty League this week. Hopefully he maintains the upside, even though they're only playing 5 games this week. Had a monster week last week. 15 home runs. He's up to 266, 322, 447, a 108 WRC plus. And I'm telling you, the trend line is still upward. More to come. 5,000, 3,300, more appropriately priced than he used to be. 51 for Sal, 31 on FanDuel, totally playable. He's hit 20 home runs this year, a 193 ISO, 118 WRC plus. Excellent option at the catcher spot, playable at first base on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it doesn't really matter. 3,800, 2,800 for Renfroe, considering he's up to 11 home runs, a 173 ISO, and a positive 105 WRC plus. Still pretty cheap for a guy who, over the past few seasons, 20 home runs last year, 29 the year before, and I believe it was, I think it was 60 across these years, so 31. I think it was 80, 2023, 2022, and 2021. He hit 80 home runs across those years. So there's a lot of right-handed power to throw at a very, very weak James Paxton for a cheap price if you're going Hunter Renfroe. That's another reason why, like, if you're combining these two teams, let's say, or just as an example of why 3 outfielders is not ideal, because then immediately you're like, but I can't get that cheap Renfroe share on my Royals stack to combine it with. Same thing with some other outfielders. I can't get Elio Ramos from the Giants. Michael Massey, 42-28, has 9 home runs from the left side at 203 ISO. Very solid second base option for not a bad price. Lefty for him. Pull it up real quick. .257, 289, 457 this year in limited plate appearances. That's only 40 plate appearances. Career is 167 plate appearances, 235, 285, 356, 121, ISO 73 WRC plus. 3 of his 28 career home runs. So Massey pretty diminished lefty, but again, Paxton just on the back end of being at all effective. So I think you can absolutely roll, roll the dice a little bit with shares of Michael Massey at second. Freddie Fermin, good on base option. Very strong slash line, 305, 354, 432, 117 WRC plus. I'm going to continue to campaign for him to get leadoff shots when he's in this lineup. He's a good table setter. Not great at anything else, but a good run creator, good table setter as a catcher. Garrett Hampson and Kyle Isbell more just mix and match parts down the bottom of the lineup. 7 home runs, 7 steals for Isbell. Both guys 78 and 75 WRC plus, pretty limited. Royals bats, Red Sox bats. Both teams high enough priority. Royals are the highest total on the board at 5.31, and then the Red Sox not far behind at 4.80. That's the fourth highest total. Neither pitcher really, but if you're going there, it's probably Singer shares from the mid-range. 83 on DraftKings is where you would want it, but I think there's enough to work with outside of this game. 2 to go, 5:38. Taking our sweet time. We've got a 6:40 start, so the slate starts in just a little above an hour. We'll jump through these, and then I'll get the site updated. JP Sears, again, playable enough, but 77.86, especially the FanDuel price. Don't really love it, and he's going to be popular at the DraftKings price. I don't have a ton of faith. 4.53 ERA, a 4.82 xFIP, just 18.1% strikeouts. Manageable 6.5% walk rate, but a bad 26.3% CSW, 10% swinging strikes on the nose. He's given up a lot of barrels, a lot of premium contact, decent exit velo, 3.35% home runs, right on the line, maybe a little bit lucky. He's just gaining upside by facing this opponent, and because from time to time, he spikes a good game, like that last one against San Francisco, at San Francisco. 7 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 9 strikeouts. Had an 8 strikeout game, 1 run allowed on 4 hits, over 5 2/3 at Fenway. In between, he gave up 7 earned to the Astros, struck out just 3. 2 earned, but struck out only 4 and allowed 2 home runs to the Angels. 5 clean innings, 6 strikeouts against that same Angels team back on the 4th of July. An 8-run game, bunch of 4-run games, a 7-run game. Usually he's pretty gettable. The White Sox are just really, really bad. see if we got the confirmed version of these lineups. Nope, doesn't look like yet. Kai Bush. All right, we got to talk about that $4,000 spot on DraftKings. In 14 outings at 14 starts at AA this year, 80 and 2/3 innings, he had a 2.12 ERA and a 3.79 xFIP. That's pitching as a 24-year-old in AA. With that, he had a 24.6% strikeout rate and a 10.1% walk rate. In AA for the Angels last year, pretty similar looking numbers. With a worse 5.88 ERA and a 4.28 xFIP. That's limited though, 26 innings. 41 and 2/3 on the White Sox in AA last year. Even worse, 19% strikeouts, 11.6% walks. And then this year in 19 innings, 2 starts, 4 outings in AAA, 18.8% strikeouts, 11.8% walks, a 6.16 ERA and a 5.10 xFIP. Not that that's a big sample by any means. 24 is right around appropriate for AAA, so that's fine. But it does look like he has a bit of an issue with more advanced competition. The A's probably somewhere between a AAA team and a Major League team, but there's at least a few advanced hitters on this team. I won't take it away from you if you want it at $4,000 on DraftKings. I just don't know what kind of ceiling you're really going to get with it. Hasn't completed the 6th in the minors since June 9th. That was a start in AA. 16th, rather. That was a 7-inning start in AA. In AAA, his starts went 3 1/3, 5 innings, 5 innings, 5 2/3. In the 3 1/3 game, he gave up 3 earned, gave up 4 earned in the 5-inning game, 5 earned on 7 hits in the 5 2/3 inning game, but that was against Baltimore's AAA affiliate, which we know is very good. I would much rather have in the head-to-head matchup the A's bats than Kai Bush, but at $4,000, if you wanted to take a few bites at it on DraftKings, you could probably do it. The only issue with that is he's getting appropriate ownership for that. So you're not like making a different decision than anybody else. There's a solid handful of people that will be throwing that dart. I think he's a little bit more highly projected on other sites. White Sox bats are really not on the board for me, even against JP Sears. More inclined to think that Sears is probably going to beat them. Just might not be a great DFS day. Miguel Vargas at the top of the lineup, having a terrible season, 89 WRC plus, one of their team leaders in the home run model, second on the team at an 8.22. He's hit 4 long balls on the season. Brooks Baldwin is very cheap in the infield. He's hit 1 home run and stolen 2 bases in 55 chances since his call-up. Supposed to be a fairly high-end kid. Hasn't shown us much. More of a hit tool-oriented kid. Pretty skippable at 22-23. Lubob for just 44.32 does have appeal. You can see a big 14.10 in the home run model. I don't have problems with the idea of one-offing Lubob against JP Sears here. 12 home runs, 15 steals, a 218 ISO on the season for him. Kind of mired in a pretty bad slump and obviously missed a big chunk of time, but at least getting some counting stats and premium contact when he makes contact. Andrew Vaughn at 31.27, totally skippable. Does have 13 home runs, but just a 156 ISO and 90 WRC plus. Lenyn Sosa is cheap at 21.23, but he hasn't done anything. 204 plate appearances, 4 homers, 3 steals, 104 WRC, 104 ISO, 65 WRC plus. Corey Lee, 9 homers, 5 steals. Mix and match catcher at best for a cheap price. Nick Senzel, 2,900, 2,400 at the Mendoza line and sub 300 on bases and an all appealing 77 WRC plus. Corey Jolks, 3 home runs, 3 steals in 127 chances, and an 88 WRC plus. And then Chucky Robinson, another catcher for the dead minimum in this lineup, if this is what they go with. Mix and match quality at best. Pretty limited on the White Sox side. The A's are the better team. Lawrence Butler's got some appeal for 3,800 on DK, 3,000 on FanDuel. 8.15 in the home run model, 12 on the season in just 260 chances, 9 stolen bases, solid 220 ISO. Went on a pretty major tear for a couple of weeks there. It's kind of cooled back off. I haven't looked at his game log, but it looks like he's cooled back off. 11.5% barrels, 49.7% hard hits over his limited sample, though. Miguel Andujar hitting for a good average, getting on base, providing some correlated scoring. That's all he really needs to do to maintain quality at these prices, 39.27. Brent Rooker, 54.38, hit his 28th home run, 301 ISO, 167 WRC plus, having a monster year, and it's very real this time around. Shea Langoliers for 41.28, 21 home runs, 237 ISO, 100 WRC plus on the nose. A playable mix and match catcher against a rookie lefty who has had problems with more advanced hitting. Might be a good day to grab some Langoliers and just ride the power upside. Daz Cameron, mix and match quality outfielder. Sub Mendoza, sub 300 on base so far this season, 92 WRC plus. Tyler Nevin is very cheap with multi-position eligibility. Over 200 plate appearances. He's hit 6 home runs, just a 145 ISO, 93 WRC plus. Pretty bad slash line. Zach Geloff is also sub Mendoza, sub 300 on base, but he's at least hit 13 home runs, 13 steals. 3,100 at second base, 2,800 on FanDuel. Playable part, but not ideal. Darrell Arnaiz, 2,200, 2,100 across sites, hasn't given you anything in his 79 chances. And then Max Schumann has actually been pretty decent over 309 opportunities. 251, 337, 352, a 103 WRC plus, 6 homers and 11 stolen bases. You can play some Schumann from the bottom of the lineup if you're getting carried away with A stacks, but quality's probably like up in this territory. JP Sears, got to do it. A's bats. Couple of $4,000 Kai Busch shares on DK if you want them. Not my play. I would do that from time to time, but I don't think this is necessarily the right spot for it. And then the White Sox bats are just kind of a hard no. Outside of maybe some Lou Bob one-offs, or if you want to consider it as a way to target the JP Sears ownership in some very specific lineups that you have like very straightforward constructions with, that might be a way to go about that. And then the big pitching matchup at the end of the night. Both the very high-end Phillies and Dodgers, 3.61 implied total for Philadelphia, 3.99 for Los Angeles. Aaron Nola, Tyler Glasnow. Two primo options. Glasnow pitching better this season in terms of strikeout stuff, in terms of DFS results. Overall, similar results, 3.50 ERA for Glasnow, 3.43 for Nola. Nola striking out 23.7% of hitters, though, to Glasnow's 32.8%. 13.7% swinging strikes for Glasnow to 10.6% for Nola. Nola's lost a little bit of edge. He's been better for strikeouts in years past, 25.5 last year, 29.1 2 years ago against a 3.6% walk rate. He was spectacular that season. Now he's just very good. 9,800 is a little bit pricey to pay against the Dodgers, but this is not the version of the Dodgers that we started this season with. So I can get there. I think it's justifiable. He'll be popular enough. 8,800 on DraftKings is a very nice price, but again, going to be pretty popular in that spot. Glasnow at 10.2, 10.5, just appropriately priced against the Philly team with enough strikeouts in it, particularly some of their key bats like Kyle Schwarber, like Brandon Marsh, even Bryce Harper at 21.7, gettable for strikeouts. Yeah, Glasnow, monster numbers by stuff. Plus, 3.50 ERA with a sparkling 2.67 xFIP underneath it. So between the two, Glasnow is pitching better. If you're looking at Phillies bats, Schwarb's at the top of the lineup, 12.60 in the home run model. Harper, 11.66. Trey Turner at 8.63. No slouch himself. Couple of playable spots down lineup. This team obviously has tons and tons of power. They've got a lot of ability to get on base and correlate and create runs. It's just Glasnow's not the best target in the world to do that against. But they will be low owned. You would be targeting the most highly owned pitcher of the day with one of the best lineups, if not the best lineup in baseball. So if you're looking for a team like that and you like to angle in against like 50% pitcher ownership on DraftKings, the Phils are playable from that perspective. It's just a terrible run total and one of the best pitchers in baseball that you are targeting. 23 home runs on the season and a 216 ISO for Schwarbs. Turner with 13 homers, 13 steals, and a tremendous slash line, 40% better than average for run creation. Schwarber was 39% better. Harper leading the way at 49% better with 25 homers and a 268 ISO. Hopefully coming out of a long slump since I acquired him, basically. He was terrible up until that home run he hit the other day, or at least terrible for Bryce Harper. Alec Boehm, 47.1% hard hits, 5,000, 3,100, 12 home runs on the season, a 188 ISO, 131 WRC+. Brandon Marsh, 37.28 is pretty cheap for his talent. Has always hit the ball really hard, 47.8% hard hits this year, 48.7 last year. Pretty decent barrel rates. 11 home runs, 14 steals, a 174 ISO, 112 WRC plus over 319 chances from the left side. If you're rostering Phillies against Glasnow, I would definitely look to include Brandon Marsh. He's going to be very low owned. He's a good way to help offset price. He's got a lot of skill from the left side of the plate. Realmuto in this spot is a high priority catcher if you're going to the Phillies. Otherwise, more of just like a mix and match option at the position. If you one-off catcher, he'll be really low owned for his talent. He's hit 7 home runs on very good premium contact. He only cost $4,500 on DK. I don't really see one-offing him on FanDuel. It would be more just I need to roster a catcher. I've got this much money. Why not? I'm not playing Glasnow. But it's not a great spot to be playing JT Realmuto outside of stacks. Nicky Castellanos, on a day where the stock market was looking a little shaky earlier in the day. People were calling it a crash. It's obviously not crashing unless something has changed over the last little bit. But, hey, maybe it's a Nicky Castellanos cheap home run day. He's got 15 on the season in a very busy year for history. Bryson Stott, 39.28, mix and match quality second baseman with a little bit more upside on the right day. And then Austin Hayes, a pretty good right-handed bat with a 42.1% hard hit rate. Only 4 home runs this year in a diminished season overall, but he really hasn't seen regular playing time, mostly with the Orioles. So an interesting enough hitter if you're going down lineup and you need to get cheap. But that said, a terrible matchup again. Same thing for the Dodgers. Terrible matchup against Nola, but obviously some playable guys among the stars at the top of the lineup. Will Smith drawing an 8.89 in the home run model. Teoscar Hernandez is at 10.41 with his 23 homers, his 220 ISO. And then Shohei Ohtani, a superstar against anybody, 15.8 in the home run model. He's got 33 on the year, 31 steals, a 315 ISO, 180 WRC plus, and ridiculous contact. It's just, do I want to spend $6,600, $4,800 for a hitter against Aaron Nola on a day where they're total below 4 runs? Maybe as a one-off, if I've got a lot of money to spend, you can get to some shares, but it's not a great stacking spot. Hernandez is cheap at this point at $4,500, considering his power output on for the season and just in general on the DK slate. Again, everybody getting cheap over there. $3,500 is more correct on FanDuel. He's been great this year. I don't really know what DraftKings is seeing that would make him that low priced. Monster premium contact, great output overall, 267, 333, 487. Even the slash line is good. Creating runs 31% better than average. Tell me what's warranting this $4,500 price. I'll wait. It's ridiculous. I won't wait too long because it's $552. Gavin Lux had that little tear, got himself to 241, 302, 356, and 89 WRC plus, getting regular shots in the 3 spot. I did see Freddie Freeman, fortunately, his little son out of the hospital, which is great. So hopefully Freddie will be back at some point. But obviously bigger priorities there. But we'll see what happens with Lux after Freddie comes back and joins that spot. Maybe he ends up like in this territory. But an interesting enough option at second base, 34.29, but only if you're going to Dodgers. Will Smith, one of the top catchers in baseball, but much like Realmuto on the other side, only if you're going to Dodgers. No real reason to go out of your way for shares as like an independent catcher against Aaron Nola. Jason Hayward, Enrique Hernandez, really rough season for Enrique Hernandez. 213, 280, 332, 6 homers, a 76 WRC plus. Hayward's just not really gotten much regular playing time. 174 plate appearances. The slash line's bad. 5 home runs and 4 steals is fine. A 180 ISO is playable. 95 WRC plus. He's a mix and match quality more so than some of the other guys. Andy Pajas is down to 240, 296, 369. He's been gradually declining since a hot start. 8 home runs. Still a good contact profile, but it's been really limited over the last little bit. Kevin Biggio and Nick Ahmed are just mix and match infielders at best for cheap prices. Neither one of those guys is good at baseball at this point. Not at the major league level anyway. Glasnow, Nola, 1-2. And then I'll go Phillies bats, then Dodgers bats. Vegas likes it the other way around, but both teams are not appealing below 4 run totals. And that is it, gang. A lot of talking through this one. There was a lot today. A lot of wrinkles on a short slate. Only 8 games, but lots of ins, lots of outs, a lot of what have you, as the dude would say. Let's see what's going on in chat. Yeah, Christian Walker got hurt, Travis Duarte. Asking about Christian Walker going back a ways to that Diamondbacks game. He's on the IL. They picked up Josh Bell, so probably going to be an extended stint on the IL. I haven't seen any time frame, but that happened like the day before the trade deadline, and then they went and got Josh Bell. Breaking down the pitching board, just real quick one last time here before I go update things. Tyler Glasnow, easily the top projected pitcher on the board. Definitely plenty of ceiling, his usual ceiling, but it is a tough opponent, tougher than your average opponent with Philly in town. Logan Webb against the Nationals, they're just a little bit low strikeout. His strikeouts have been a little bit down this year as a DFS play. He's not totally ideal on FanDuel at 10,000, but he's very, very, very playable, and that's a good projection with ceiling. At 84 on DraftKings, he's downright appealing in that spot. Aaron Nola just, facing the Dodgers. Everything I said about Glasnow, same thing for a cheaper price. Zach Gallen, bad matchup against Cleveland for DFS success, but a good price, 9,400, 8,600, and will be the lowest owned among those four top pitchers. He'll be lower on the JP Sears as well. Sears, great value option at 86.77, more so on DK at the 77. I don't fully trust him for 86 on FanDuel, but there is monster upside against the White Sox for basically anybody, and Sears is a capable enough strikeout pitcher on the right day. So I think you can get there, but you're going there hand in hand with a lot of people on this slate. When you do have other appealing throwable darts, especially guys like David Festa for cheaper at 6,100 on DraftKings. I'd rather just have that at lower ownership and a much lower price than Sears at 77. Not that I trust him more than Sears, not that I think the Cubs are more targetable than the White Sox, but if everybody's going there, give me a monster discount. Give me a $1,600 discount to take him. He's got more / at least similar strikeout upside. Brady Singer in the middle, just not a great option against the Red Sox at 91 on FanDuel, 83, a lot more playable on DK. Hunter Brown, 96 on both sides. I do think is playable. I do think he's got a little ceiling beyond that median projection, but not the best matchup with an improving Rangers lineup on the other side. And then we get ugly. Nick Martinez, don't think you get the innings to justify anything beyond what you see right there as the median projection. Maybe 25 fantasy FanDuel points, maybe 12 DK points, but not much more beyond that. Heaney, bad option against the low strikeout Astros team, especially on FanDuel at 84. On DK at 64, you can throw the Heaney dart a few times for just a bargain bin. It's a bad quality spot, but that is a appealing enough price to offset the bad. And he's got just enough strikeout upside that he can find a little bit of bonus even against the super low strikeout Astros. He's not appealing, but I do think he's another alternative value dart rather than the Sears play. Corbin is a hard no against San Francisco, even at 68 on DraftKings. Logan Allen, pretty hard no at 84 and 79. I just don't think the prices are right. James Paxton, hard no against KC. Kyle Hendricks, hard no against the Twins. Kai Busch, you could roll that a little bit at 4,000 on DraftKings, but similar to the Sears play, he's going to be the second most popular value pitcher. I don't know what kind of upside we're dealing with there. The A's have some right-handed power talent. Kid hasn't been that good in the minors. So I'd probably, again, rather spend a little bit more and give me the Festa value play. Give me even the Heaney value play. They're not great. They're almost just as likely to fail as he is. But if everybody's going to that one, I'll go the other way. And then Roderick Munoz at the bottom of the board would need to find a lot of strikeout upside against the Cincinnati team that is profiling pretty well against him. 7,200, 6,600. He is very cheap. But Festa is cheaper. Oh, man, I'm going to feel bad when one of these plays blows up in our faces. But I think we get through with Festa today. I really do. Just got to keep the ball in the yard. Keep the ball in the park. That's all you have to do. And it's not like the Cubs are showing dramatic home run upside against them or anything. What's that, 5 guys above the magic number? Only a few of these guys are in the lineup. Dansby is. Bush is. Were Paredes and Suzuki and Happ all in there too? I thought one of these guys, I thought we lost one. Oh, no, we do have 5. Yep. 5 guys above the magic number for home run upside. We'll see what we get. Again, very, very playable Cubs on the other side. Definitely a spot if you grab shares of cheap Festa, hedge in other lineups with Cubs bats. And that is it, you guys. Let me punch out of here. 6 o'clock on the nose, 6:40 lock time. Follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle. I will have the site updated in mere moments because we've got most of the lineups in. Check out acemind.io and hop into our Discord if you're not in there already. We're around for questions running up to lock. A lot of chatter after lock, watching the slate and stuff. A lot of fun there. And going to be more activity with football and basketball right around the corner, and hockey coming up. There's a pretty active, pretty good hockey channel going on that I have very little to do with other than just opening it. But yeah, no time like the present to come join the community and hop into our Discord. Let me give you a quick link here at the end of the show. That is not the way to do that. What did I do? All of a sudden I was on Emacs direct message. There you go. Link to Discord at the very end of the show. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. We'll be back tomorrow for a probably pretty large Tuesday slate. See you guys.